starts. Hello, everyone. Welcome. Oh, it's not working. It was working a second ago. Well, just give us a moment while we get our stream going. But thank you for joining us as we rank the Marvel movies live. I'll be explaining how we're doing that exactly in just a moment. Okay, that's what I want. I'm seeing it on my stream, but not on the broadcast. How very strange. Well, that's frustrating. um, it's oh, there it is. Okay, I think it's just delayed. All right, I think it is working. I'm seeing the list. Thank you for joining, everyone. So we're going to be doing this a little differently. Ben is currently writing out his choices. I have all mine here. And we're basically going to be doing this list together to arrive at our ranking of our MCU movies, which will show up on this screen here. Now, the way it'll work is basically we'll take turns going. So I'll say my least favorite movie. He'll say his least favorite movie. Then to avoid ordering effects, you'll go again, and then I go, and then I go, and then you go, and then you go, and then I go, and so on and so forth.
All right.
And then when we both say ours twice, it gets locked in. So, for example, if I said, and I'll use this because this was our test example from earlier. If I said Black Panther, well, we don't talk about Black Panther at all. We don't even justify our choice until the other person says it. And that could be like way up there later.
Okay.
And then based on where it falls, but like let's say we both somehow really didn't like Black Panther and we say it first, then it would go at the bottom here. And so on and so forth until we fill it out. That's why ordering effects matters, because like the second person to say it essentially locks it into the position. This way we both have a bit of a sway in the direction it goes.
Okay.
Our favorites are going to tend to drift to the top because we kind of control when they get capped out. But that's designed into this list. Like, it's our list. It's not necessarily going to be a objective measure of these movies' quality, although I don't know how you would do that to begin with, so that should be good. And meanwhile, we had been just about ready to start, and I noticed we have people joining us and are already providing answers in chat. So while Ben's working on this, let's see what we got here. Oh, by the way, this is Ben. I'm Arden. Ben's been on one of my streams before.
Yeah, I was here for the first Injustice stream, if any of you guys were there for that as well.
That Ultimatum video is now on Patreon too, so that's something.
Oh, yeah.
It wasn't terrible.
If you support him on Patreon, that's definitely a video that might be interesting.
It wasn't terrible. What really bugs me is like there's a mic stand blocking you the entire time. So it doesn't look good. But Jersey guy, whatever, 81 says, that's an easy answer. Everything sucks and is absolutely terrible with the exception of 4. Black Panther, Infinity Wars, Iron Man, Winter Soldier. Well, that's your opinion. Shane Baxter's top 3 is Guardians of the Galaxy 2, Winter Soldier, and Infinity Wars. Cryptid Zecker says his worst pick is Captain Marvel. His 5 best are Guardians of the Galaxy, Iron Man, Avengers, Captain America, Winter Soldier, and Endgame. Oh, and then there's one more. Ali Al-Kofi says Thor 2, Captain America 1, and Miss Marvel, or Captain Marvel, were all boring to watch. And the good ones were Infinity Wars, Endgame, both Guardians of the Galaxy, Winter Soldier, Civil War, anything with Iron Man in it. And then last one, as that came in while we were talking, Azrael 1984 said Captain America is the best hero of all time. So some pretty standard opinions. All sorts of things that I recognize for obvious reasons, but we'll see how it all washes out in the final opinions and stuff. I don't want to talk too much about it because Ben and I don't know what's on each other's lists. It's all a wonderful surprise for us, but I think that'll be really cool. I really don't know where things are going to go from here.
Yeah,
I kind of have a vague idea of your taste, but not that much. Like to be like, oh, he's going to say this at the top or whatever.
We specifically did not talk about this. Just yesterday I had to go watch 2. One that I hadn't seen before and one that came out when I was very young, so I would have had to rewatch that just to see what it actually was, because I don't think little Ben was really paying attention to that.
That's fair. I was in high school when the first one came out, to give you a difference, idea of the difference of our ages. But yeah, I had seen them all and recently enough that I was comfortable making this list. We used a cool little app thing that ranks the two against each other to help us make our list. You tinkered with yours. I went with my results, so it should be interesting.
I only flipped 2 movies for a frame of reference. So the ranking was pretty good. It was just 2 movies.
I've used the quiz before and done that myself. This one just came out good for me this time. And these opinions, mine have changed a lot over the years as standards change and new movies come out. I was thinking a lot about like how Logan and more recent superhero movie that I can't slip into my mind now, but some of them have kind of raised the bar even if they're not MCU movies.
Oh yeah, just kind of making
Joker.
you think about what you have to watch.
Joker was the one I couldn't think of.
Oh, okay.
Joker and Logan. Joker's not even like this huge masterpiece, but I found it was affecting my opinions in a weird way because I was just like, oh, nah. I don't know. Like it's not like, oh, like this thing isn't as special anymore because like there's movies like that doing crazy things, really interesting stuff.
Okay.
All right. So Tevye Smolka is a Patreon, speaking of which, and whatever, he came in and said hi. Firstly, I think Captain Marvel movie was meh, and his top 3 are Avengers, Captain America Civil War, and finally Avengers Infinity War and Endgame. Well, there's 4 movies in that, but I get what he's saying. And yeah, a lot of common recurring themes there that I can't really comment on too much yet. So I guess we should get started.
All right.
Anything you wanted to add before we get going?
I think we're good. We'll get into things as we kind of get going.
Yes.
So, all right. Do you want to start or should I?
I'll go first, I guess.
Okay.
Oh, mine's a doozy. So my least favorite Marvel movie is Captain Marvel.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh. I had Thor: Dark World.
Okay, so that's our first round. We don't talk about either of them until the other person mentions it.
Okay.
But now you go first.
Okay.
Because it can affect things.
For my
So this is your
22,
Yeah.
I had Iron Man 3.
Okay. I'm going to check that off on here. Do you have your pen still? Because you might want to do that. It's deceptive.
I got it.
Okay. Yeah. I was going to say it's deceptive, but as we go along, it's going to be hard. Like, Iron Man 3 is elsewhere on my list, so I checked it off now.
Okay.
But my number 22 is Thor: The Dark World.
Okay.
So that's the first movie we're going to talk about. And I honestly, like, it wasn't my bottom choice, but it's my second bottom choice. I don't begrudge its placement here.
Oh, are we talking about?
Yeah,
Thor? Okay, perfect.
We're fully talking about. This is our discussion of the movie now, and we can take a good long time with it.
All right. When I was doing my ranking, the one thing that I tried to really think about was if I was willing to watch the movie again.
Uh-huh.
And I really don't have any urge to ever watch that movie again.
Yeah, I don't hate this movie. Like, we're already bordering into territory of it's like, oh, it wasn't a terrible movie. I remember being bored in theaters with this movie.
Yeah.
This is one of 2 movies, and you can guess what the other one is, that I was bored with during the movie. So it really didn't do anything for me. What's his face? Malachi, played by Doctor Who. I'm sure he's somewhere on that poster there, but I can't even see him. Oh, he's the big face in the top background there, right at the top left corner of our screen.
It'll be over.
Yeah.
Top over there somewhere.
Yeah, your direction that way.
Over here.
It's weird. It's hard doing it that way. I never do that right. Yeah, he's nothing. He's like a cool comic book character and a really cool actor. Like Chris Eccleston plays him. Okay. I don't know if you watch Doctor Who at all, but he's great. But he was in like 28 Days Later. He's a good actor, and he was severely underused.
I didn't even know who the villain of this movie was when I thought back to it.
He's like those weird dark elves, and they do kill Thor's mom in this movie, and it's called back in another more recent movie in a way I really enjoyed. I like that. Yeah. This is the first turn for Loki's character.
Yeah.
So it's post-Avengers, and he starts to move in an interesting direction. And something I find kind of cool is that's no longer canon for Loki, thanks to Endgame.
Yeah.
Like, all of this stuff starting from here is no longer happened to his character, which is Like, I'm sure people have different opinions about that, but I think it's interesting. And like, there's interesting aspects of this movie. I don't hate Natalie Portman and her little group of friends.
Yeah.
I get why some people do. This is one where like Kat Dennings, which is Natalie Portman's sidekick, gets her own sidekick, and that's like a joke thing. And so, but like that's where like some of the lifeblood of this movie is, because otherwise it's really boring.
Yeah.
The climax of this movie is this big multi-dimensional fight where they're falling in between different worlds, and it's such a waste. Like, that should be really cool.
Yeah. I want to be able to remember that fight. And
well, there's nothing like, there though. Like, yeah, like there's like, it's not like I'm it's like, oh, they fall into a couple places on Earth. They go into Asgard at one point, I would think, but I'm not even totally sure. There's an Infinity Stone in this movie. It's the ether. It's like the red stuff that infects Natalie Portman.
Yeah.
They actually do make fun of it in Endgame in a good way. We keep talking about Endgame now. Well,
so we'll get to it eventually.
I guess I've drained that about. This is also the same director as the first Thor movie. It's by Kenneth Branagh. He does like a lot of Shakespeare stuff. He played Hamlet in Hamlet, but like a pretty good rendition of Hamlet, like one we watched in high school and stuff. And I find these first two Thor movies have that like lofty Shakespearean thing, and then they flip them every once in a while to go into Natalie Portman's world of fun stuff. It's not terrible. Like if we were doing another film studio, like I'm not even calling out DC specifically, but if we were doing like all Marvel movies, and this was our bottom one,
yeah,
like we're doing pretty good.
Yeah.
Anyways, do you have any other opinions about that?
No, I think you've got a lot more knowledge on these
on
than
the
I
Dark
do.
World.
So.
I had a lot of thoughts about that one in particular because it's at the bottom, but like I still defend it.
Yeah.
We have more rankings in. Where do we even start from? People are chatting a lot now, which is great.
Yeah.
I don't know if I can go through it all. There's some stuff about Guardians of the Galaxy being great. They're talking about Sentry. Do you know who the Sentry is in comics?
I do not.
He's like a Superman parody that's got a lot of psychological issues.
Okay.
His whole character is just about like, oh, well, what if Superman was like that? And how dangerous would that be? And there's a whole bunch of Marvel stories exploring that. You'll learn more about him through us eventually. Anyways, more stuff. Interesting, someone called out a bunch of the Iron Man movies at the bottom. They also echoed Thor 2. I don't think that's a unpopular opinion. And someone else pointed out, yeah, like their list is bound to change when Black Widow gets released. Probably. Mine too, I would say.
I'm excited to see it when it comes out.
Yeah. Okay. Jason Tupac asks, if you made a Marvel movie, what character would you choose? Sentry, Wolverine, Miles Morales. Or Miles Morales out of those three. I don't know. I guess Wolverine.
Like, I'd like to see Miles Morales if we could get Donald Glover to be Spider-Man.
I guess.
I'm still trying to fight for Donald Glover for Spider-Man.
He's the wrong age for that now. He's Spider-Man's uncle. He could be the Prowler. But my issue with that is, not that it's so much an issue, it's like, oh, he has a great movie franchise already. Like with Spider-Verse and stuff.
Yeah.
It's like, why do that twice? Or at least not concurrently. Let them do the Spider-Verse movies, and then we could bring in Miles in live action or something. I would prefer that. I don't think that matters that much. Anyways, so round 21, I will go first this time.
Okay.
That's what you're...
Yep, I went 22, so
okay,
you're 21.
Just making sure that's right. They haven't said 21 already. Mine is Iron Man 2.
I also have Iron Man 2.
Oh!
There we go.
First double pick. I was wondering if that would happen at all.
There we go.
Okay, so that also means that Iron Man 2 is the next one up. Iron Man 2. Well, you can go ahead. Let me just
all right.
get the poster up.
Iron Man 2, it was just so forgettable once again. It was like, as a kid growing up watching the movies, I had no idea who he was. I felt like it wasn't even fully explained to me, at least in a first watching as a kid.
You were kind of young, so you might not fully appreciate it, but this was a real rushed print sequel kind of movie.
Yeah.
And I would argue it's kind of the only Marvel movie like that, but they really didn't expect Iron Man to be this big success. So they did a few things. One of them was, okay, we're going to try this cinematic universe, but they also were like, make the Iron Man sequels right away. And that's also why they come really early in the franchise.
Yeah.
There's not a lot to this movie. Whiplash is there, goes to the race races. They have that whole big racetrack scene, and it's okay. It's pretty cool. They mouse off to the Senate at one point. And then they have the big fight at the end with all the different robot Iron Man drone things.
Yeah.
And that's it. It looks okay, given that it's so old.
Oh, yeah. And one thing that I was surprised about was looking at it, how good they were for at least their times. They may not be phenomenal now, but they're still pretty good. It doesn't hurt me to watch them.
This is pre-Disney, too, so they didn't have a lot of budget or anything like that, and they look pretty damn good. Given their time period, like, some of these Iron Man suits compete with modern day Marvel movie Iron Man suits, which is confusing, and I don't understand that. This movie's frustrating because Don Cheadle is suddenly War Machine.
Yeah.
And it's so early in the gate to be doing that, and the stories behind, like, that recasting aren't great. Also, I'm looking at this poster, and I was like, oh, right, this movie introduces Black Widow.
Yeah.
Forgot about that. Like, she's great.
Yeah, I'm glad she's in it.
I'm looking forward to the Black Widow movie, which she doesn't do much here. Like, she's in it. She has an action scene, and then she's like Tony's chauffeur or something at first. And then they find out, oh, no, she's just a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent.
But hey, they were able to put her on the poster.
They were. And she looks very different there.
Oh, yeah. All right.
Cool. Okay, so now you go first for round 20.
All right, so I had the original Thor.
Okay. Alrighty. Mine for this round is the Incredible Hulk.
Okay.
So no hits on either one there, but now we go to round 19.
All right.
And I go first. Wait. Because you said Thor, and then I said Incredible Hulk.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah. We're good.
My number 19 choice is Thor.
Okay.
So that says, we're pretty close with some of these. It shouldn't be too surprising. A lot of the Phase 1 movies aren't the strongest in the world.
Yeah.
But they're not terrible. I didn't hate this movie. We're definitely into the territory of like, well, I mostly liked it at this point.
At this point, we're kind of ranking off of subjective things, we are the whole time.
Yeah, but it's getting to the point of like what we like the most at this point.
Yeah,
and it's early to be doing that.
Yeah,
but it's true. This is a pretty fun movie. I like the whole fish out of water thing. The loftier introduction of Asgard is pretty good considering it's all new to people at that time.
Yeah,
Destroyer was fairly fun. There's no personality there, but it was a cool scene where he's just tearing apart the town. I was just gonna say it's a real movie set moment though.
Yeah.
Like look at the setup of that.
When I watched it, I enjoyed being able to see Thor as just kind of a no one and seeing the progression.
Yeah.
So it once again it just kind of came down to, do I see myself wanting to rewatch this movie? And when I'm looking at every other movie on this list, I find it very difficult to want to watch this when given the option.
Well, that's true. Okay, because you can watch, so many like cool things, like big action set pieces, or you can watch like Thor fight a dude in the rain. Now, I know who the dude is, but I was dancing around it because I want to ask you a question. Do you remember what random cameo Avenger is in this movie?
I don't.
You don't?
No.
I was curious if you did or not. It's Hawkeye.
I didn't realize
Hawkeye's at the S.H.I.E.L.D. base that they built around Mjolnir, and they fight in the rain.
Okay.
He does not fire an arrow in this movie.
That's probably why I had no idea.
Yeah. Okay, so we gotta get in some interesting, well, let's say pushback, but they're not being rude. Ali Akofa says, no one hate me, Iron Man 2 was my favorite Iron Man. That's not controversial, I'd say. It's interesting that one ended up in the bottom of our list. That's not how you ranked it. That's how I ranked it.
Yeah.
We'll talk more about the other Iron Mans when we get to them. But I wouldn't. This could be your favorite movie, and that's fine. Maybe you really liked all the scenes with the bird and Whiplash's bird. Do you remember that? No?
I find that, this is... don't remember much.
It's fine. You're ghosting on Phase 1, which is, like, the most forgettable movies. And I have, like, an eidetic memory, because, like, I haven't rewatched most of these movies, but, I have some of them, but, like, I haven't Iron Man 2. Chris Houston, though, says, Thor at number 21 is blasphemous. And I was like, There isn't a lot to that movie.
Yeah.
You didn't remember, well, I wouldn't dare call him a main character, but, the introduction of Hawkeye.
Yeah.
It's not a big deal. All right, so now we were halfway through number 19 with your other 19 choice.
All right.
I did mine, and yeah.
So my other 19 choice was The Incredible Hulk.
Oh, cool. So that's our next one. Interesting, because you mentioned earlier, I don't think you said it on camera, but you talked about how you like the Hulk as a character.
Yeah.
I didn't say much because I was curious where this was going to end up because of that.
See, I've always been a fan of the kind of brute characters, whether it's the Hulk or the Thing. So I've always been a fan of that kind of character.
That might inform your choice though too, right?
Yeah. But so I had to watch 2 movies last night in preparation for this stream. And this was one of those 2 movies. Just because, as I said, this movie came out when I was really young. So at that point, even if I watched it, I much more remember playing the video games of this movie than I do watching the movie.
So there's a video game about this, huh?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, I might have to bring that up for you.
You can try it out at some point. I didn't know it existed.
It was just a really bad game, but I remember it a lot more than I remember watching this movie when it came out.
Yeah, no, I'm just checking chat. So what did you think about it this time around then? Did that change that opinion? Yeah.
Well, it's not that I actually disliked this movie.
Okay. Me neither.
As one of our commenters in the chat there, the most recent one.
Yeah, Cryptid Zecker 415. I can't make that bigger, I don't think.
But it had a really good Stan Lee cameo with him drinking the beverage.
Oh yeah, right. Yeah, that was so good.
That was a fun way of having him in the movie. And I actually found myself starting to feel for the Hulk character, which I wasn't sure that they'd make me do.
They put a lot of time into that for sure.
Yeah, so
I liked Edward Norton as him too. Someone else was saying they didn't like how he got replaced with Mark Ruffalo. I like Mark Ruffalo though.
I think Mark Ruffalo is probably my favorite, hands down.
Yeah, me too.
I feel he brings a lot to the character.
I don't know a lot about the old series live action show from 60s, 70s era, but Lou Ferrigno plays the Hulk, but that wasn't the human actor, I don't think.
No.
And I don't know much about that, but Norton did a good job, and he put a lot of work into this particular movie. I know that, behind the scenes and stuff.
Oh yeah.
It kind of shows. Not much to the villain.
No, that it really felt kind of, and it's just it was just so basic.
Yeah.
The ultimate motives.
I think you can kind of tell that they're trying out their cinematic universe stuff too. There's not a lot of the connections there. But I don't know if that helps or hinders anyways the movie. It's weird.
S.H.I.E.L.D. was in the movie though, so that was something that I found interesting. When I first saw the logo come up when they were doing the scans. So
does Tony Stark. He has a cameo in the post credits thing, right?
Well, yeah,
and stuff. So which is interesting because then someone has asked me about that. I was like, no, it's just he got recast. I also have mixed feelings about recast. Oh right, so this whole system, this little thing that we did, is from a podcast called James Bonding, where they did this. I didn't come up with the idea on my own. I just think it's brilliant. It's by a guy named Matt Gorley, who's a professional comedian and set designer and stuff. He's been on Drunk History and all that. I would recommend the podcast if you like James Bond at all, but what we were just saying reminds me a little bit about James Bond. And that's where the casting stuff bothers me less. You look at a franchise like that, it's been running for about the same number of movies, but for over a much longer period of time. And they changed casting around, and they don't seem to care in Britain. It's like Doctor Who, which you mentioned earlier. It's just whatever, there's a new person. But they do that at drama historical shows where it's just oh, this person's not available now. We're changing the cast halfway.
Yeah.
Just do it. They don't care. So it's not as big a thing. Cryptic Zecker also points out, he said, we never got the leader with his big brain. That was also, I think, a bit of a stumbling block here to set up that villain for nothing. I always, that's an easily forgettable thing.
Oh, yeah.
So you didn't remember that before you rewatched it?
Oh, no.
I'd be shocked if anyone did. Okay, so that was 19 for both of us, I believe.
So I believe I got next then. All right, so for 18, I had Age of Ultron.
Okay. My 18 is Captain America, the First Avenger.
Okay.
And then we can go right ahead to number 17. For me is Avengers Age of Ultron.
Okay.
It's, that's why. That's funny. Which is our number 19. So we're getting into this other column here. Avengers. I'd have to short form some of those as we go along. That's okay. The only thing is now the poster's going to cover it, but that's okay. They'll see it in between in the interludes. I knew this was going to be a bit of an issue. Oh, here we go. Avengers 2. That's why. All right, there we go. Yeah, I wonder if we can just kind of move this. Yeah, let's do that. I'm gonna move that there for now. We'll move it back after so people can get an idea of the full list. But now people can not really, because we're blocking that. Never mind, that's worse. Okay, so this movie's okay. I don't hate it. It's Whedon's other Avengers movie, and I'm sure we won't be talking about the first one for a little bit. It's not that bad, and that's what Phantasm says in the chat, and I agree with that.
Once again, like I kind of enjoyed how it was. It's Quicksilver, correct? I actually kind of enjoyed the scenes with him in it, and then I very quickly didn't care again. When he first got introduced, I thought they could do some really cool things, and then
speaking of forgetting things, I hadn't forgotten about that, but I was like, oh right, that's a whole thing in this movie. I guess I forgot enough of it.
Yeah, I think that was surprisingly that was probably what I remembered the most about the movie.
The thing I remember most about Quicksilver is his death, and then he has the thing with Thor's hammer.
Yeah.
And that's about it. There's a lot of tacked on scenes, and you can feel the conflict going on that's very well evidenced at this point between Joss Whedon and Disney and all the things they wanted to set up for other movies. Marvel and Disney seem to back off after this movie a little bit on some of that, because they toned it down a little bit and they stopped saying like, oh, we're just gonna Thor's going on a vision quest and I like the Hulk's gonna fly off in a spaceship, and I remember when I was watching that movie the first time, I didn't clue in that was what was happening in that scene. I just left the movie.
Yeah. From
my perspective, and then Black Widow and the Hulk were in a romance. All that would have actually been okay if there had been any sort of implication that the Avengers were working together in between this movie and the last, but that's not how they structured the MCU, especially at this point, so it felt really weird to me. Like they had all these world-ending threats they were dealing with, and then they were separate for all that. Then they get back together to wipe out Hydra, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know who they were fighting in the beginning of this movie. It's a cool scene.
Yeah.
They were the bad guys they were fighting in that scene were the ones that made the twins, like Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver. But they must have been Hydra.
I think so. Yeah,
it feels weird. I think we're both hedging on that a bit because of Winter Soldier and stuff and what happens later.
Yeah.
But I guess it would have to be. Yeah, because there's like a generic bad guy in the base with the twins, and he was like vaguely European Germany guy. They were fighting off Baron Strucker. That was his name in Hydra. Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
But that has nothing to do with the rest of the movie.
Yeah.
Which is where it also gets confusing, because then Ultron comes in. I love Ultron.
Yeah, like when I
first... James Spader is so fun as him.
When I first saw Ultron, I thought it was really cool.
Cool trailer for him too. I remember that.
I actively try to go into movies blind. So the first time that I saw Ultron was actually in the theater watching it. I refused to watch trailers. I refused to see anything online about them.
They did a neat thing with the trailer then I'll tell you about, because you wouldn't have seen it because it's not actually in the movie. But they took a Pinocchio song, because now that Disney had the rights to it, and they had like a little girl singing it for the trailer. Like, there are no strings on me, and then Ultron quotes it at the end of the trailer. It's pretty cool.
Hey,
so it was a good
sounds cool.
It was a good example of a good trailer, but that's around the time I stopped trying to watch trailers too. Not so much for this movie, but Terminator Genesis. They spoiled it in the trailer in a huge way, and they did that in a bunch of other movies, and it started to sour me on it. But they did it well for Age of Ultron. But one of the best things I could say about it is the trailer, I guess. So, but he's got a good personality. I love the scene where he rips the guy's arm off by accident, and he's just like, I didn't mean to do that. I'm sorry. Yeah, it was fun, but then like he just wants to blow up the world, and he does it in a really weird and haphazard way. I don't know. Oh, because of our voices, I guess. But I may have too much of an issue with Vision. Oh, right. The later films, but this character just didn't impress me as he did in the film when he popped up. Yeah, that's a good point. He just appears out of nowhere.
Yeah, I kind of forgot that was just how he was there.
Yeah, like I remember him being in this movie, but it is like, oh right, that just happens late in the game, and so I was just like, no, it'll work, it'll be great. And the only other thing that I wanted to mention is they set it up well, at least in later movies, is the scene of all having the party together. We need more of that with the Avengers in general.
Yeah,
that's a weakness with some of the later stuff with Endgame. Oh, wrapping it up, and they never really had like this period of adventures together.
Yeah,
Age of Ultron desperately needed to be just that. I feel so like the party scene is like I wish that was the whole movie, not even just partying, but that atmosphere and just them doing stuff and fighting Hydra and stuff, and forget all of this bigger plot stuff. That's coming, but they have that scene where like Cap pulls Mjolnir and it budges just a little bit. That was great.
Yeah. I remember seeing that in theaters, and I was so excited because I was just learning about Mjolnir and how it actually worked at the time.
Well, yeah, because fans of the comics just knew that like that was a cool little moment, and it ended up setting things up without them really. It's an example of good planning, where it's just like they put in a cool comic book moment, and then one later was like, well, we can follow up on that in an amazing way, and it did.
Yeah.
Which I think is a good place to wrap up Age of Ultron.
Yeah. So we are at number 17.
I went first.
You.
I went first with Age of Ultron for 17, so it's your turn.
Oh, okay. So for 17, I have Captain Marvel.
Oh, so. Okay. My bottom choice.
Yeah.
I feel like I come on really harsh with that one, but I mentioned I've only been bored with 2 MCU films. Jason Tupac asked about the Batwoman TV show. I don't really care. I've seen like little bits of it, and I didn't hate it.
I've only seen the advertisements in Toronto.
I guess I came across more defensive there, or not defensive even, just like ambivalent because he asked it loaded. Probably not even on purpose, but do you hate the show? I was like, I don't hate it. I don't anything. Anyways, Captain Marvel. So yeah, 2 MCU movies have thus far bored me. One is Thor: The Dark World, and the other one, and I would say way more guilty of this. Like I got bored at Thor: The Dark World during that end scene when they're what should be the most exciting part of the movie, and they're flying around in space and jump into different realms, and it's boring as all hell. I was bored throughout most of Captain Marvel. There's this cool scene that I've talked about on the channel before, but I'll bring up again, where she's fighting these guards, and at one point the Skrull yells at her, and she kind of like yells back, like just goes "Rah!" Like kind of imitates it, but like just at a very little moment, and then like the fight keeps going. That was early on in the movie. I was so like, oh, this is great. Like this is perfect.
Oh, if this is how the movie's gonna be, this is gonna be great.
Yeah, it never really happens again. And it's all just kind of downhill from there. I like the scene where she's playing with the little girl, and they're like trying on different outfits, and full little like references and Easter eggs in there, just alternate outfits, and that's about it. I don't like anything else in the movie. I don't like how it's structured. I think that was a huge flaw. It made it kind of like Batman Begins, and that ends up like just not giving it any weight somehow. Like she starts out emotionless, and I think showing that change in a different way would have been better, or just making her happier at the end of the movie so that there is a change and she's getting away from the Kree, telling her not to be emotional. I don't know. This movie is trying to do a lot of different stuff at once.
I forgive me for not remembering everything, but there was the alien that she kind of the comic relief of the movie. It like I can't if without
Kalos, the Skrull.
I think so.
Like the Skrull that ends up being the good guy. There's only one.
The movie was so like forgettable for me once again.
Well, I did check some of these names. So there's Jan Rog, who's Jude Law, her old mentor. like, I would say the villain of the movie pretty much, because then she turns on them and stuff. There's that you're not talking about the comic or Marvel, like supremacy.
Yeah,
pre-intelligence. That's not comic relief. There's it's got to be the Skrull who like is the bad guy at first, but then he's like, no, I need to work with you, and he likes milkshakes and stuff.
Yeah, like when
he's Australian.
When he was my favorite part of the movie, and it took us this long for me to be able to place even who he was in relation to the movie. I think that speaks volumes. I
had to check all these names. I wouldn't be able to not tell you Chubot's character if I didn't. Like, I was trying to figure out who the villain of this movie was for something else that I was talking about with you.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't have known. I don't think I would have known that even like the mentor character that gave Carol her powers was supposed to be Marvel, like her predecessor in the comics.
Yeah.
That I found out by Wikipedia. And it was like, oh, okay. Cryptid Zecker, who's been making some good points as we've been doing this. Someone else, I'll bring that for other comment in a second, but he said he wished they never had that Carol the Avenger Danvers scene. Yeah, that was annoying. Not like, it was just dumb. Yeah. That's just, like, that's one where it's on the plane, and so it's just like that's where Nick Fury came up with the name.
Yeah,
that's unnecessary.
It was just rough. It felt like it was trying to be fan service in a way that no fan wanted it.
Yeah, and the whole 90s prequel aspect was not necessary at all and creates so many problems. I don't know what talking high and low means. Our volume's coming in pretty even. I'm keeping an eye on it. That little green meter there, it's fine.
It could just be every once in a while we ourselves are getting a little quiet. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess. He's really pretty good about that. Could just be someone's speakers or something. Usually when one person complains or says something's wrong, I don't know. That's always our end. I don't know what else to say about this movie. I felt bad putting it at the bottom, where it belongs. At least like for my list, it's.
I find
when you consider the full context of my list, it's kind of interesting too. So we'll get into that later, but
I find that I probably would watch this movie again. That's why I have it. So, like, not at the very bottom of my list, because I think I would watch it again to try and give it another chance. But, once again, I'm not putting this anywhere close to the top of the list. If I'm being asked to watch one of these movies, this isn't close to the top.
Oh, someone else is saying it's coming in uneven. I don't know what that means.
If I'm being asked to watch movies, this isn't close to the top.
Oh, someone else is saying it's coming in uneven. Yeah, we are kind of cutting in and out. How odd. Oh, that cord did seem a little loose. Okay. Well, that's interesting. This isn't the newest mic in the world, but it's usually the better choice for like streaming and stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, if it's just that, I can fix that. I'm just gonna turn the gain up. They usually will help. I think it is just us like dynamic effects, looking up and down and stuff. But it should be more sensitive than that.
Okay.
But that seems better. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And I don't get why they bothered making it in the 90s at all, because they could have. There's like 5 years between Infinity War and Endgame that it should have taken place in. That would have helped a lot with some other stuff. I get that they didn't really want to box themselves in or maybe like put a whole production into that thing. Much better. Okay, so. Well, thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys.
All right. So Captain Marvel, where was that? Number 18. That's rough for a late. Like, it's in stark contrast to everything else here that's phase 1 or like early phase 2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So on to, I guess, my 16 then.
Yes. Right? Yes, that's right.
All right. So at my 16, I had the first Ant-Man movie.
Okay. I gotcha. Sorry, I was looking somewhere else for a second. My 16 is Spider-Man Far From Home.
Okay.
Yeah. Those are different movies for both of us, I think. Like that, we might be starting to depart a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because now it's becoming a lot more
That's true.
subjective on what do we enjoy as individuals.
Yeah, we got a few more to go for those,
Yeah.
I think. Like, I think we could, I could guess where the next few will be, but yeah. So that was our respective 16s, right?
Yeah.
So then I go first with 15.
Yes.
That's one we're talking about with Iron Man 3.
Okay.
Speaking of, like that one I thought would be pretty. It was gonna. Well, like you said it all. You said it a long time ago.
That was my 22.
Yes, I did make a note of that. That yours is very low. Mine is very relatively high for a Phase 1 post Avengers movie. Which I see 3 Iron Man posters that I couldn't tell which one it was. I'm sure a huge part of this comes down to Trevor, who I like. I don't love what they did with the Mandarin.
That is what put it at the bottom for me. Is that I very, very much care about my villains, and I want to both love and hate my villains. And I found myself just hating the Mandarin in this movie.
Okay.
I just anything that I had built up throughout the entire movie just kind of got taken away from me, and I did not like that feeling. That's
fair. It's certainly a reasonable objection. I think that the whole I like it. Like, it's a pretty good reveal. It's pretty funny. I think it would be a lot easier and be more justifiable if, like, we didn't have to consider the 22 other movies that are, like, really absent with characters of, like any Asian characters to begin with, but even just characters of color in general and stuff. Yeah. And I get why, like, the old school Mandarin looks super racist. Even the name and the character is a little dicey, but I can think of at least a few comics where it's like, well, just do what they did. Yeah. And you'll be fine. You'll be just fine. He looks great. And he did some cool stuff in those stories. Yeah. That worked better than this. And they were kind of what they used as the genesis for Iron Man 3, which is rough. Because, like, that's where all that extremist stuff comes into play. And, like, they just didn't pace it out well. Yeah. Yeah. Some people really hate this movie. I don't dislike it completely. It's weird that it was a summer movie that was Christmas themed, but it's a Shane Black movie, so I guess that's the thing now. And I don't know what else to say about that one. There was a time when I remember being really excited about those suits. That big crazy scene at the end. He has a name for it, like House Party Protocol, I believe. And that was cool. We got our first little taste of the Hulkbuster armor, and then they all exploded. And then they all came back in the next movie. Like, this is a weird period in MCU history.
Like, I didn't feel like I cared about the villain by the end. Yeah. And then as soon as the next movie that featured Iron Man came out, I no longer cared about the end of this movie. Yeah. It just
Yeah, because, like, the whole emotional hinge of it is just like, I don't need these suits anymore. I'm still Iron Man. And it's like, I need more suits. And, yeah, that was a weird choice. That's an example of they didn't quite figure out exactly how they wanted to do it. Tony got PTSD in this movie, and that was pretty interesting. They didn't really do much with it here, and it never got mentioned again, but that was pretty interesting. Like, oh yeah, like, you survived the events of Avengers, but they were traumatic, and he almost died. So that kind of works a bit. The Phantasm points out something that I have made a mental note of too, because I've already said it, but First Avengers is going to be higher than some of those, and he thinks it's underrated. We'll talk about that a little bit more, but yeah. Now chat's talking about that movie. So I guess we should move on.
All right.
So I said Iron Man 3 for my 15. What is your 15?
So my 15 is Ant-Man and the Wasp.
Okay. That's both of your Ant-Man movies. I haven't seen either yet. Yeah. All right. So now 14, you start with that one.
So I had...
Oh. Well, go ahead, but I just forgot to do this part. Sorry, go on.
So at my 14, I had Captain America Winter Soldier.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. That one is shocking.
I'm gonna get hate for some of that, or for that. I'm gonna get hate for some of these, I think.
I thought I was gonna get more flack for Captain Marvel, but I didn't get a lot of pushback there, so you never know. These things are subjective. We'll talk about that one when we get to it. So that was your 14?
Yeah.
My 14 is Doctor Strange.
Okay.
Yeah. Alright, so then we go on to 13, and it's going to be my first, and another one we're talking about, Ant-Man and the Wasp.
Okay.
Which is interesting. Pretty low, I would say. Lower than I would have expected, but I'm the one who pulled it up, so I guess that's why. I was disappointed by this movie, though.
Yeah.
Start to finish, start to right up to the finish, I should say. I really like the ending.
So this was the second movie that I had to watch yesterday. I didn't really care about the...
Not the strongest night for you.
I didn't really care about the original Ant-Man, as you guys can tell from me having it at number 16 on my list. But it didn't do anything for me. I felt like I really cared about some of the characters, and then it kind of all just got fixed up with nothing for me to really feel about. It's just no consequences, no...
That's about how I feel about it.
No nothing.
There's a lot of cool cast and characters. I was really excited for Wasp to be like a huge thing of this movie, and she isn't. She's got like a few scenes. Some of her stuff is cut out of the movie, but like she's not a huge part of it. I would say this is the most out of all the MCU movies. And honestly, now that I'm saying all this out loud, I might mentally want to rank this lower. Although I think if I did that, I would go down a spot or two, and that wouldn't actually change our order.
Yeah.
Maybe lower than Iron Man 3 though, because my big frustration with this movie is it feels the most like a standard comedy sequel where it's like, oh, we're gonna do all the bits from the first movie again.
Yeah.
And that was rough. Most of the MCU sequel movies aren't at all like that.
I found they kept hitting on the same jokes over and over in the movie. The same lines were said many times.
Someone mentions Michael Pena being like a strong part of the movie, and Scott's whole little crew is great. Someone else is in it. In the crew that I really like. I forget his name because they don't have a lot of lines, but they're all really funny.
Yeah.
And like the way they do the storytelling and stuff through that is, but that gets into what I was saying. But I wouldn't want to not have them back in the movie and not doing stuff either. You got to kind of find that balance, and I don't think they hit it. Yeah. I really like the briefcase building.
Oh yeah,
that was fun. And if you look in the background, there's a lot of cool little details. Like a Duracell battery powers the entire thing, and it just gets embiggened and stuff whenever they are huge. Little stuff like that work.
I found that I cared more about the security business than I did about the whole crux of the movie, really.
I guess. Like, I didn't even care about that stuff.
Yeah, I didn't care a ton, but I cared more about the security business and what was going on with the side posse than I did about the core of the movie.
This movie also features Michelle Pfeiffer and Lawrence Fishburne, both of whom feel really wasted. Yeah. Like one is the original Wasp, the other one's Goliath, who should be a pretty cool character. Yuzu brought up something neither of us mentioned, which is worth mentioning. He likes the moments between Lang and his daughter.
Yeah.
Those are good. They're rare, though. That's a very small part of the movie. Like, Endgame does a little more to that credit. Like,
yeah.
Although I do like the whole family is great. Like, his ex-wife and her husband, and they all are like really nice to Scott now and stuff.
I felt so uncomfortable with the ex or the new husband and how like touchy and how feely he was towards.
I liked that because it was like an interesting moment of growth from the previous movie where it's like, well, he saved all their lives and stuff. Like I think they're just all in his camp. They get it because they lived through it all. Most movies would have, and even this movie, they would have thought would just ignore that and it would just be the same dynamics. I enjoyed the change more than anything.
Yeah.
Phantasm goes on to say he wishes Lawrence Fishburne was a bigger part of the MCU. I mean, it's cool that he's in it. Perry White and the DCU, so yeah. We'll see if Cassie Lang ends up becoming more of a thing.
Yeah.
She's like whole thing in the comics. Okay.
So we're on my 13?
Yeah. Oh, something someone else said in chat that we forgot to talk about. Well, not forgot, but I neglected to bring up in our talk about Captain Marvel. Captain Marvel 2 is going to have different directors, the directors of Captain Marvel aren't coming back for Captain Marvel 2. So it's going to have a different director or directors, I guess. That has me a lot more excited for that movie and for the future of that character and stuff. I don't have anything particular against Brie Larson.
Yeah. When it was first...
They've overpowered her character, but that's a different issue.
Yeah.
That was a dumb mistake, and that's another issue from Captain Marvel. But we don't have to go back and rag on that movie too much. It's just it's something someone mentioned in chat that I was like, oh, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Light Hope says Thor Ragnarok will always be number one. Oh, we'll see where that ends up. I'm not saying that. Well, yeah. Okay. And then someone else says, how can you like Thor Ragnarok? Well, we'll have to get to that when we get to it.
All right.
So we're on to your number 13.
All right. For my 13, I had the original Iron Man.
Okay. Neither of us have said that one yet. And then we go on to your number 12.
Okay. I had the First Avenger.
Captain America, the First Avenger. Okay. There it is. Not too far, like, crazy high. Although the part that I'm most interested in is the fact that I guess this is more a Winter Soldier conversation, but you rank that above Winter Soldier.
Yeah.
You crazy monster.
I know. I'm an awful person. For me, I really enjoyed...
Look how long
like
that title is. It's breaking my flow. You like the what?
I like seeing the... I love the underdog stories. I love that. I'm a big football guy, so I've always been a fan of underdogs. And when I got to see the Captain America, it was just another underdog story that I really enjoyed. I wasn't huge into comics at that point. It was just something that it made me excited to watch more.
Fair enough.
So
I've never seen this poster before. It looks cool. Sorry, I just one we got from this thing. That's why I put up the wrong one at first. I didn't recognize it. Here's my contention with all that. And like I like these Howling Commandos. I wish they were more. Well, that's my issue with the movie though. It's like it does all these things well. Like the underdog. They really make Chris Evans look scrawny somehow in this free experiment thing, and then he becomes Captain America. That was cool, especially considering this is an old movie at this point. Howling Commandos is great. That whole underdog story, that's the whole central thesis of the movie. Yeah. Him diving on the grenade. All of this stuff feels like a thin part of the movie. Like we never get into anything that deeply. I like the heroes, or not the heroes, Howling Commandos, like his team, they're in a montage, and they do some stuff in a montage, and that's about it. Captain America's underdog business, we show it in a montage when he's on the USO tour and he tours around for people and does that stuff. That's Red Skull, always pretty cool. He's in it a little bit. We don't really see him as is that much. Bit of speeches about how they're going to take over the world. And I can't tell you much else about this movie. Tommy Lee Jones is in it. That's cool. He's the sergeant or whatever and stuff, but... there isn't a lot there. I had this at 18, which is relatively low, but that's because, I just don't think there's too much about it.
I get that. But as I said, when I first saw...
We're definitely in subjective mode where it's whatever. But I just, that's how I feel about it.
Yeah. I enjoyed it the first time I watched it, and it made me... This was probably one of the first movies, if not the first one, that made me go, okay, I kind of want to get into this. I want to know more about comics, and I want to learn that kind of stuff. So for me, it's always going to have that kind of rose-colored glasses to where it made me feel something at the time, which means I'm going to want to put it higher than I do other movies that maybe just didn't hit me. Yeah.
Damon Omnicon Scott says Hugo Weaving did a nice job as Red Skull. Yeah, I agree. Yeah. He did good. But I just feel like I feel like everything in this movie is just a little underserved. Like the romance there, it's not bad. Just a little underserved. Would have paid off better in Endgame if set it up a little more. But it is also just a movie.
Yeah.
But they put a trailer at the end of it. Could have spent some time doing something else instead. But like the other side of it that you were saying was like, well, I kind of see what you're saying about like, well, it's a good movie for getting like, oh, I want to read about like the Howling Commandos. Just like have a series of them just fighting stuff in World War II. Especially because in like the comics, the Howling Commandos can include like Wolverine, Sabretooth, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Because why not? They're established to have fought in World War II already. So it's okay. And interesting. We'll have to leave the rest until we get to Winter Soldier. But I
know.
think it'll be for a while. So that was your number 12, right?
Yes, it was.
My number 12 is Iron Man, another one we're talking about. And that's the last Phase 1 movie. Well, actually, it's not. It's second last.
So we had them very close to each other.
And spitting distance. Probably because I've probably pretty close feelings about them. My big thing is like, this movie doesn't have a third act. It's got some very troubling moments in its like first act, really. And there isn't a lot to the movie, but it started it all. It really is a cool movie in that it just runs on this theme of like Robert Downey Jr. and Jon Favreau just having fun with this character. Yeah. And that works for me.
I just recently actually listened to a podcast that had Robert Downey Jr. and he was talking about how interesting it was on set filming the movie because it wasn't set.
Interesting.
There was a lot that he was able to kind of put into the character, so it was interesting for me to be able to hear how much it did for him, especially at that time.
It does feel very loose. Like, here's Robert, like here's Tony Stark, and he's here at a party, and he's hanging out with these soldiers, and oh my god, like now we're hanging out in a cave, but that's most of it. And then like there's that big action set piece. But everything around that is just like, we're partying and talking about this stuff again and just debating about whether or not I should have this tech. But I'm just making jokes and it's an interesting movie in that like there's all these scenes that I'll be watching. This is a movie I don't remember well, and that it's like, oh, what? Like I don't remember him sleeping with journalists and like kicking her out at the beginning. Like that's the first thing you see in the MCU, and it's like, oh, okay, whatever. But like, it doesn't matter because it's just like, the charm will get you through it. And then, the third act is like a real mess. He's just fighting a bigger, eviler version of himself, which would turn out to be a bit of a problem later down the road of the MCU. But it doesn't matter, because then we get to like him doing the press conference. Well, I am Iron Man. And it's just like, oh, like holy shit! Like nothing about this is ever going to be like the standard kind of comic book movie. Yeah, secret identity thing was crazy at the time. I think that is like kind of kicked the whole MCU into gear, because then it was like, well, now what? Because that was unheard of at the time. Now it's not as big a deal. Yeah. Not even a huge deal in the world of comics, I would say, but like it was cool that the movie went there. And it went there over and over. And then after the credits roll, Nick Fury shows up, and like there's so much to that. I think I've told you about how like Samuel L. Jackson agreed to let them make the ultimate version of that character like him. Yeah. And then like they commissioned it. He got a cool portrait of it like hanging in his house for years and years. And then this Iron Man movie came along, and he agreed to do this little cameo thing and got to play the character that they designed based on him to begin with.
You have told me that. I completely forgot about that though.
It's so essential to everything, like, and how like all of this stuff came to be. That was what's really cool about it. Is it all just kind of came through nerd stuff like that, and Sam L. Jackson just being a really cool dude about it all. He was talking recently. He's like, "Oh yeah, I still want to play Nick Fury forever." And it's like, great. Like,
I think I'd be okay with that.
I think, given his age and stuff, it's only ever going to be little things, but that's fine. Like that's where like I think at the end of Captain Marvel. No, this was at the end of Far From Home. They like cut, and he's on a spaceship somewhere, and Talos is impersonating him on Earth for some reason. It's like, who knows what that's about, but that's interesting. Like, okay, I'll see where that's going. I'm not against that. I've already said Far From Home a while ago, but I like that. Okay, so that was my number 12. Then we go on to my number 11, which is Avengers.
Okay. I also have Avengers at number 11.
Weird. Okay. That's cool. The higher up it gets, the more like, oh,
yeah,
that's interesting. The Avengers. Yeah. Oh, well, you know what's interesting is 11 for both of us, but 13 total.
Yeah, okay.
But that's about right. Like, so far, it's like, I can live with this.
Yeah.
Thor the Dark, let's take a half-ish way moment. Yeah, this is going to be a longer stream, but, anyways, so Thor the Dark World, Iron Man 2, 2 shitty sequels, Thor, The Incredible Hulk, Age of Ultron, Captain Marvel, Iron Man 3, Ant-Man and the Wasp, Captain America the First Avenger, Iron Man, The Avengers. I kind of like this. I would mostly agree with what is here so far. But I would say Iron Man and the Avengers are buoyed up a little bit. Like, not so much that they're bad movies, but I think we both have at least a little bit of reverence for them because they're influential.
Yeah.
Because they're influential, I think they're also rewatchable a little more to a degree too.
Yeah. Without the Avengers, a lot of movies aren't gonna happen.
There is that, and we shouldn't discount their existence as an achievement per se. We wouldn't be talking about any of these movies were it not for these two. Technically, and I mean that in the literal term, on a technical level with camera work, cinematography, effects and stuff, these are both competent movies, but they're not the best in terms of Marvel stuff. And that would also kind of be true about writing and acting here, but very influential. And not bad movies either. They hold up really well too, especially Avengers.
I have rewatched the Avengers recently.
Avengers is well crafted. And not to say that Iron Man isn't, but there's all that stuff I said when we started talking about Iron Man about there's no third act, there's all these problems. I can't say the same about Avengers. It's well put together, very clever in its design and how it introduces characters. You don't have to have seen all the preceding movies to be able to enjoy the Avengers, and there's so many cool scenes. The introduction to Iron Man's a really cool scene. And I say that because it's not so much just about Iron Man, but it's about Cap too. Because there's that guy who just stands up to Loki and he's like, "Oh, I remember you." And then Cap shows up and does this big heroic thing. And then they start doing AC/DC and Iron Man comes in. It's a really good scene. And then they kind of get into Thor's introduction and them trying out their powers together and stuff. So we get a sense of how this all interacts because that's all new.
Yeah.
And then New York City happens, and there's a lot of cool stuff there. That's where the CGI is most dated and it's weakest. Especially, I'm even looking on the poster that we have up there, and there's that blue laser shooting up in the air.
Yeah.
That's not a cliche when this movie came. This is the start of that cliche, basically.
Yeah.
And everyone started copying that.
It was good when I watched it when it came out. I thought it was great. It was phenomenal.
None of this stuff I noticed at the time. Yeah, when we were watching it the first time, the CGI didn't bother me. We don't have that standard then, anyways.
Yeah.
But the blue laser was maybe it had been done before, but it was at least fresh enough. I think it hadn't been done before. Well, maybe this is around the time of Man of Steel, so at least at this point, it's starting to become a thing that all the blockbusters just decided this is how they're going to end their movies and stuff. But it's different in tone for most of those, anyways. It's bright and optimistic. They do that spinning scene, and they have a really cool score. This is one of those movies. I was thinking about music, so I was thinking about possible ways for us to rank things in the future and stuff. There's not a lot of music to the MCU in terms of it being a huge part of their movie.
Yeah.
Not the way Star Wars or the Dark Knight trilogy is. This movie, though, does it really well, and that would become useful later in future Avengers movies. I would say I can't really think of some of the movies we haven't talked about have good music, but those are soundtracks with specific songs. But Avengers has a score, and it works really well for it. I'm looking at these. I can't name a single score or tell you what it sounds like. Thor kind of, Thor Ragnarok, I should say, with its crazy electric guitar and stuff.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't be able to walk you through it. I could just tell you it's good soundtrack. It's got a very specific tone to it, so I could talk a lot about it, but we won't yet. And otherwise, it's pretty perfect. This is our introduction to Mark Ruffalo as the Hulk, and I don't hate Edward Norton, but Ruffalo is so good in this. I think Ruffalo works better in a team setting, anyways.
Yeah,
he kind of bounces off people a little better in a way I can't see Norton doing. I can't picture it.
I'm so glad that they fought for the look of the Hulk in this movie. I don't think if they would have just kind of like they had in previous movies where it's two completely distinct, like, looking beings, I think it would make it a lot harder for a general
there's so much
viewer
going on
of the movie to be able to kind of grasp on and understand what's going on when so much is going on.
Yeah. And, like, this is the movie that they still are doing that to a degree.
Yeah.
Lou Ferrigno is credited as the Hulk in here, and it's still in his face. And they abandoned that entirely after this. And they do a lot of stuff with the Hulk in this movie, though. Like, he's a huge part of Loki's plan. They do, we were kind of saying, like, Black Widow Hulk relationship comes out of nowhere. They do establish those two in here.
Yeah.
And their relationship, but I don't want to call it that because it's not what that is. Like, their friendship in this story is really well done. And is like this huge emotional linchpin in this movie, more so than Black Widow and Hawkeye. Because Hawkeye is mind controlled through half of this. Poor Jeremy Renner. He just can't catch a break, even in the good Avengers movies. No. And everything else is pretty dang good. Yeah, this would like shape all of Avengers for like almost to a negative extent in the years to come. Like all those Daredevil shows would reference this event and stuff, and it would affect how the people in this fictional world would view things and all this stuff. It's a very cool movie like that, and it became this touchstone of sorts.
Yeah.
And every movie studio tried to copy it after that, and it made $1 billion. But like, and the other cool thing is this movie could have been totally different. They like fought with the military and ended up just abandoning getting any like financial support for them entirely. That's why the army isn't super into this movie, and when they are, they're like dicks that try and blow up all of New York City. So Nick Fury like blows up one of their planes, and then that's the scene where like I don't know, that's just weird. Yeah. There's a lot of stuff going on there that no one seems to have to pay any consequences for later, one way or the other. Like maybe the guys who fired nukes should be the ones going to jail, not Fury, but yeah, someone should. Okay. All
right. So we're on my 10.
Because
that was my 11.
These are going to be interesting from here on out.
All
I think, given that there's 12 left and we're on, that's normal. That's the way it should work. Cause we've done the one-offs.
Yeah. So for my number 10, I have Doctor Strange.
Okay. Yeah. Doctor Strange used to be around there for me. It used to be higher and stuff. I love the movie's visuals. This might be like one of the better looking, at least in terms of like all the cool stuff they do. This is one of the better looking movies for that, in terms of how interesting their visuals are. I don't know if it's the best looking movie, and I wouldn't say it's. Where I keep like stopping myself is I wouldn't say it's the best shot movie.
No.
But it's got cool visual effects. I remember telling one of my friends, Dylan, who's been on some of our streams before, that like, oh, you might want to see this movie in theaters, Doctor Strange, because like it's interesting looking and stuff.
Yeah.
And it was interesting enough to me to justify seeing it 3D in theaters as opposed to most movies. I wouldn't say it matters.
I'd say that it was more of an experience to see. There's a lot of movies that you really want to watch in the theaters, and Doctor Strange was one of those because of how the visuals were a main component of it.
Yes. I like how much of a dick he is at the start of this movie. They do a good job with his character. They kind of like... They start him out like Tony Stark, but without like all that charm and stuff, where it's like, no, he's about the same level of jerk, but it just comes across so much worse.
Oh, yeah.
And I think they did that really well. It felt intentional, because then his turnaround feels more earned and stuff, too. I don't love the whitewashing behind the story, and like someone might not like that, hear that, or whatever, but it's very political, too, and like specifically to China's politics and stuff, which is not okay. And aspects of this movie are pretty thin, I would say.
Okay.
Like there's not a lot to it when you, like there's a lot, like it's a very old story they're telling here, one that's borderline racist, where it's like, oh, the guy's gonna travel to the East and learn their ways and then master it and become better at it than all of them and become the teacher. And and his predecessor had already done that. from the Celtic age. And it's like, yeah, there is... That's Dances with Wolves. Like, that's 30 years old as a story trope.
Yeah. That being said, it is okay to enjoy these movies.
Oh, yeah.
Like, just because we are saying bad things, this is still in my top 10. So,
yeah. Well, I used to be in mine, and I just, like, over time, it's just like, I don't know. Like, character stuff and all that, like, I've seen a lot of it before, and it aged out for me, I guess.
Yeah.
These things change. Like I said, there's cool visuals, but I don't think that's enough to carry it through me for the movie. You've talked about, like, wanting to rewatch stuff, and it's like, yeah, this doesn't come up there. Someone, Phantasm in chat was like, Dormammu, I've come to bargain. That's a cool scene, and that's pretty interesting and stuff. And I like how he defeats the villain. That whole final act is pretty cool because it's not just this traditional battle thing, and that makes this movie damn strong. I will say that. Where it gets more thin is because a lot of the rest of the movie is very typical. Oh my god. And the humor in this movie. Now I'm remembering a little bit about why I'm lower and coming out pretty heavy on it. And by the way, we've already, like, we hit the part where it's like, well, I like most of these movies a long time ago.
Yeah.
But I'm going to be honest about it. Discuss why mine's much lower than yours, for example. Yeah. And that's part of it. But the humor, I remember, like, being in the theaters and people were laughing at the Beyonce jokes and stuff, and I've never felt, like, so dry from it. I don't know, I got nothing out of that whole string of jokes. Yeah. Because they brought it up a few times. The one time I laughed was, I think he was listening to it on his headphones or something. It's like, oh god, this just keeps coming back.
It was almost more funny because you're like, I can't believe they're still doing this.
Yeah, and that one was funny. But the other one, like, I just wasn't really laughing at that or a lot of the other humor. That villain... Because Dormammu's not the villain of this movie. He's like the final boss. Yeah. It's that Kelsius guy, played by Mads Mikkelsen, who's a really good actor. And there's one scene where he's, like, crying and held in that weird device thing that's holding him in place. Yeah. It's like, oh, this character could be interesting. It's too bad, like, this is the only scene we've gotten with him where he talks more than, like, 2 or 3 words. And that's it. I don't know what his motivations were. He liked Dormammu, I guess. He wanted the whole world to burn. But not in a fun Joker way. Like, there's no thought behind it. Behind the character, I should say. Because, yeah. Anyways, that was pretty harsh on my part. But it's not a bad movie. I like the cloak. I liked... And Doctor Strange is awesome. Benedict Cumberbatch is pretty cool. Yeah. Like, as he goes on into Infinity War and Endgame, that's where I find it really starts getting traction.
Yeah. See, I was a fan of Benedict Cumberbatch. Before this, I was excited to see what he could do with it. Yeah. And I wasn't let down because I really did dislike the character at the beginning of the movie. Yeah. And there was a shift throughout the movie of me going, okay, I don't hate you. Okay, I understand it. Okay, I like you.
I do like what they did with his character. I also don't love his American accent. It's not authentic. No. And he should have just been British. I don't get it. I was like, well, they're all American. Why bother?
I wouldn't have been disappointed if he was British.
There seems to be this mythology within Hollywood, like among British actors, like, oh, they can all do an American accent. I can never tell. I'm not even that good at accents, and I can tell. They did the same thing with Bruce Wayne in the Titans show. And it was played by Ian Glenn, who's from, like, Game of Thrones. And maybe it's if you know them and you can hear it in their voice more from, like, British stuff. Yeah. It's more obvious, but he got better, though. So I don't think it's just that. Like, Infinity War, it was more, like, okay. I think it seems like it'd be more comfortable British and you could act more naturally if it was British. Yeah. It bugs the crap out of me. My pick for number 10 is Guardians of the Galaxy #1.
Okay.
We're definitely getting into the movies I unambiguously like now. So it's just a matter of the ones that you drudge up from the bottom. Yeah. There's one more that's coming that I have nothing great to say about. So
I think I know which one that is.
So
you're at 9.
Yeah, okay, that's what I thought. My number 9 is Ant-Man.
Okay.
So we're getting back to that. Yours? What was your Ant-Man ordering?
My exactly? Ant-Man was at number 17.
And that's below the first Ant-Man? Or the second Ant-Man?
That is below Ant-Man and the Wasp. Yes.
Interesting. So yeah, I don't feel that way at all. I think I liked Ant-Man a lot. And I found the sequel very bog standard, but like when it was all fresh and new, I was on board with this movie.
When I first watched it, the reason I never watched Ant-Man and the Wasp was just because the first Ant-Man movie never caught me. I watched it and then immediately was kind of indifferent. I didn't really care when he showed up in the other movies. I didn't really I just didn't feel anything personally, which once again is kind of subjective there.
Yeah.
But for me, I didn't feel anything coming out of it, so it was just forgettable for me.
Well, that's interesting. No, I liked this movie. Considering all of its production issues, I was surprised at how much I liked this movie. I think a lot of that charm does come from Edgar Wright from before he left this thing.
Yeah.
And that's maybe where Michael Pena's strengths come and where the humor in this movie comes through, because there's a lot of stuff I love. Aside from all the things we talked about in Ant-Man and the Wasp that came back that we liked, but I wish maybe it didn't so heavily come back.
Yeah.
There's a lot in here that's like I love Corey Stoll's Yellow Jacket. I like the whole aspect of him where it's like he's a business guy, and I think he probably was just a pretty normal business guy, and this shrinking technology messed his brain up. And Corey Stoll, like, just as an actor, I really like, so I know him from other stuff, so I found that really fun. I liked the ants and how they introduced all of this, and
I did really enjoy the ants. The ants were... Yeah. I liked how they were able to do it, how I really didn't question it when it was in the movie.
Well, and the Pym family was really fun, too, and how they got introduced. Like, all this stuff I really liked and worked for me. And then to cap it all off, and where this movie ended up my number 9 overall, like in this particular iteration of my MCU rankings, because they do keep changing. But, especially in this last round of rankings, what kept saving it from being ranked lower, and every time I compared it to everything we've talked about so far, except for one movie, two at this point, but is that finale, where they're fighting on a little girl's train table, and they got the license to do all the Thomas the Train Engine stuff, and it's so creative and fun, and I just loved it. Like, there isn't much substance to that. Like, they're just literally just fighting on toys, and because they're tiny, it works. But the dynamics of it are just great. Being able to cut out, and the sounds are tiny and small and nothing, and then zoom in, and they're big and loud and epic.
Like, it definitely was a fun movie.
It couldn't be simpler, but I love it a lot. I will say this, looking at our scoring, like, we both were pretty critical of these two, Ant-Man and Doctor Strange, like, respectively. Like, we each had our own dislike one. But I would say 11 and 12 are right where, like, that works for me. Yeah. It's not where I personally ranked them, but it's like, not quite the top 10. They're not bad.
That exactly, like, with how low Ant-Man is for me, I'm not mad that it's all the way up.
I would say for both of these, like, a little bit of tinkering, and they would deserve to be in the top 10.
Yeah.
But neither do. Although mine is, but I wrote this
in the overall list that we came up with together, I guess. We can say
I wrote this saying, like, kind of knowing, like, well, I'm not saying this beyond my own opinions. So I think, like, as we rank them, like, I don't know, I would maybe be more deferential to some of the older movies if I knew I had to present these on my own. I don't think this would be as fun if it was just me, anyways, for that reason. That's obvious, but...
So we're on my number 9.
Yes.
So my number 9 is Spider-Man Far From Home.
Okay. Yeah, it's gonna be pretty regular at this point, I think. And that one I was waiting for. Yeah, I'm not shocked. Oh God, you made this in the top 10. How could you?
I'm so sorry I did this to you, Arden.
This one, I came pretty close to boredom. This might be the third MCU movie that's bored me out of all of these. I know I said 2 earlier, but I might be wrong. This one came awfully close if it didn't.
See,
I got a lot of issues. Go ahead.
My biggest gripe with it for me would just be how I just felt uncomfortable at points, just with the character. So, I understood why they were doing the character choices they did, but laying into the dumb teen who kind of doesn't feel like he deserves the things that are given to him, and giving it to ultimately the worst person to possibly give it to, just kind of leaning in on those dumb teen ideas. That's why I had it in my low top 10, but I still did enjoy the movie myself.
Okay. See, here's what's interesting, because you threw me off for a second where you started talking about characters. Oh, I didn't follow you for a second, but the reason for that is you've gotten too far into the movie. Not that I it's engaged with you more than it did with me.
Yeah.
Like on a level that it just didn't with me. So you're talking about character stuff, and it's just like, huh? Like it's like I didn't feel anything. I didn't feel anything in this movie. Like, I don't know what was wrong or what happened. I was so excited going into this and being like, oh, it's interesting how they're doing with the blip. It's cool to see all these characters again. I love Jake Gyllenhaal and thought he was so good as Mysterio. Given, like, and I've had people say this, and I don't really feel about, like, it this way, like, that, like, treating Mysterio like a hero, and then it turns out he's a villain, doesn't work.
Well, like, see, for me, I went and watched it with someone who wasn't a superhero fan. It was just, oh, hey, Tom Holland's in this movie. You like Tom Holland? Let's go see this. Okay. So going there, and I was off-put by him being treated as a superhero, but it took nothing away from the person I was watching it with. So I think for me, that's something that I kind of take with a grain of salt.
Right. He's also like the strongest part of the movie. It's like when they do that reveal, it is good. Oh, it's so great when he like takes off that like image of himself. Not image, but like I'm being abstract here when he has images for real in the movie, so it's confusing. But like he has a facade that he's putting on in front of everyone. When he takes it off, it's great. But then, like, all of his action scenes, I hated them, like, with Hydro Man and stuff, where it's just, like, all weird illusions. It's cool how they show it later, and how it turns out that these things are being produced and stuff. But the actual, like, fights with them, I was just like, this is just him fighting a water monster. This is just him fighting a sand. Like, there's something wrong there. And then, finale is okay, but I didn't feel much there either. And then the big thing is, like, they go home, and, like, so keep in mind, this is low. This is 16 for me.
Yeah. I was surprised how.
I got nothing out of this movie. They go back to New York, and it's like a breath of like life came to me. Also, I was like, oh right. I didn't realize how much. It's not always true, but Spider-Man definitely needs New York to a certain degree, and it's a huge part of his character. And I think you could do a trip movie like this, but it didn't work for me, and I think that was part of it. But also, there wasn't enough like emotional weight to anything going on in Italy to me.
Yeah.
Didn't get much out of the characters, like any of the characters. I love Mary Jane, or they call her, it's distorted in this movie, Michelle Jones, I think. I found that out late into the game that she's not Mary Jane. I think it's MJ.
It's just MJ.
And that stands for Michelle Jones, I believe.
Okay, I didn't know that.
I think. She's fine. All that stuff's good. But then they have his friend, who I still like. Yeah. But then he has a romantic whatever, and she's like an okay character and stuff, and I think she does get involved with the Spider-Man action at one point. I liked that, but like it was just like, oh god, like I'm not getting anything out of these characters, and it's so much of the movie.
Yeah.
And then all this stuff with Nick Fury and Mysterio, again, like just nothing. There wasn't any meat to the character stuff with Tony Stark's dead. You got to deal with it now, Spider-Man. Yeah. That whole relationship has not been done well, I don't think, between those two.
Yeah,
I like it, the idea of it, but yeah, there's no movie where it's like, oh yeah, like there's their father-son relationship, like that's what's strong.
Yeah, like I really did enjoy Zendaya's character as MJ.
She's great.
She played it to a point to where I was really rooting for Peter to get the girl, and me in that movie, that's probably also where I enjoyed it more because I was into it. I liked how it was some guy that before the blip, as they called it, was 5 years younger, but all of a sudden now they come back and it's some hunk of a dude who now he's got to deal with that kind of separate.
That was kind of a neat idea, but I didn't. I didn't care for that love triangle. I had blocked that out of my brain until you mentioned it, and then I was like, oh right, Yeah, that whole love story aspect of it didn't work for me. For that, I think that's part of it too. It's like, yeah, they have good chemistry, like Zendaya and Holland. They have since the first movie. But they didn't do a lot between those two at first, anyways. But it was there.
Yeah.
100%.
And I think because, or just because I enjoyed seeing that kind of relationship and the awkwardness between it and seeing what he wanted to be able to get, but just everything was going wrong. It made me once again kind of just feel more. That's why it kind of pulled it into my top 10, which pulled it into this top 10.
Yeah. Well, I mentioned at the beginning, it does it. It does that. We can affect our favorites. I pulled something else up because of that, and probably more. And yeah, okay. The only other thing I was going to say about that is just like, it didn't feel true to me. All that stuff you're saying about the struggle is just like, yeah, and maybe that's part of it, is they have good chemistry. So for like their relationship not to work, it's like, nah, this is forced. Like they probably would be dating if they were like real characters.
But I fully believed the awkwardness of it.
I didn't in this one.
I
have from Tom Holland in Homecoming. That I'll say that. I'll preempt Homecoming, saying, I felt all that before. It felt more authentic then. I didn't feel that here. It felt very like just, oh God, we're acting.
Granted, it was Zendaya that pulled me through that kind of love triangle thing. I didn't necessarily care about either of the guys in it, but I did like how she was able to play into it.
She was good in that.
So that's kind of...
I was specifically talking about the Tom Holland awkward stuff. So. Yeah. She was great. But I think that's part of the issue, though their chemistry felt more real than anything between other guys. It had an effect. Okay.
All right. So this would be my number 8.
Yep.
Correct? All right. For my number 8, I have Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1. Or the first one. So,
okay. So that is another one. This one is not a huge difference from us, even though I did say it earlier, but like I was number 10 and you were number 8.
Yeah. Very close.
Is it just me or is it reverbed? Is there more things going on with the audio now? Can turn the gain back down a bit. I might have overcompensated slightly. Hold on, let's just can do that. Turn the gain back down a bit. No, that doesn't sound that bad, right? I didn't hear any reverb there. That might. Okay, well, if everyone's hearing reverb, let me know again. Guardians 1, that's right. Lost my train of thought. I don't know what to call it. I guess Guardians of the Galaxy, we'll say. I'm pretty sure that's the official title. So they didn't call it Guardians 1, I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's just Guardians of the Galaxy.
Galaxy. At number 9, I agree with that. I mean, I that's close. That's right in between our two, isn't it?
Yeah.
8 and I was 9, so that...
Yeah.
Right, I was 10. You were 8.
That's how math works, I think.
But this is a great movie. I think it would be higher if it weren't for its sequel. Its sequel, well, we'll get into that, but I think it just sort of amps up stuff enough that's why it was just like, it wasn't like that top for me because it just has a superior model at this point. But it's got a great soundtrack. We were talking about score earlier. This movie in particular, I would say even more than Volume. Okay, they both have excellent soundtracks.
I would say that this soundtrack was more impactful outside of the movie.
Yes, but Volume 2, I would say, uses its soundtrack more effectively. And we'll talk about that more when we get to it, but that's where I hedged my bet, because it's like, but this one has the better soundtrack overall, and it fits in with the narrative and fits in with Peter Quill's character specifically.
That's what I really appreciated.
Yeah, like, it's a cool detail of this whole franchise that they did really well, and like from start to finish of this movie. Then he finds Volume 2 at the end.
Yeah,
so well done. James Gunn is amazing. Cast top to bottom, great. Chris Pratt is a perfect Star-Lord. Some people don't like him because he's not blonde enough, but whatever. That's not.
I don't really care about that.
No, that's not a good enough. Of it. He has the humor, and that's so much more important. And like that, he has that right attitude for Star-Lord, I think. then everyone else just sort of fills in perfectly.
I really, really enjoyed Dave Bautista.
Yeah.
I loved how he played his character, and in general, like, I genuinely enjoyed Drax.
You kind of reminded me how much of a surprise and a delight that was in the first movie, because no one knew. Like,
no.
He was a wrestler and stuff, but he was like, I remember when the first reviews came out for this, and they were like, wow, Marvel found another wrestler who can really act like Dwayne Johnson kind of and stuff, and like bring it. And he might even be better than that. It's hard to really know the full range of those two and compare them, because they've done very different stuff at this point.
Yeah.
Although, because Bautista has range. He's done more stuff since then. He's been like a James Bond villain, and well, not villain, henchman, but stuff.
I just think that he was really able to pull something into the character that would have been missed with a lot of other people.
Carry a whole trilogy of movies on his own, probably out of the 5, the most.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
I can just
by himself. Yeah.
Oh sure, like Drax stole the movie. Here's what you need to do for that. You break the fourth wall a little bit and let him talk to the camera like Deadpool. But instead of like it being super jokey, it's more like, oh come on kids, I'll show you how to do this. And he just starts stabbing people and stuff. Like almost like a kids show, like television host, but not at all appropriate for that kind of thing. And,
that would be amazing.
But no self-awareness there. He's just like, oh, like this is how you like gotta like guy from Nova or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
Can't pull out an alien name that quickly, but like a guy from Spartax or something. And it also has a really good like emotional arc to this movie. Like they start out all different and it's standard stuff together, but the way they bring it all together with Groot's sacrifice, and then they kind of manage to find a way to kind of keep Groot around, but not really. And it is still a real sacrifice. I'd say the movie's biggest weakness, and it's a big weakness, Ronan the Accuser. I almost said Nova.
Yeah.
There's nothing there. Like there's no character to that villain. He's just there to do orders for Thanos and get danced at the end.
Hey, you know what? I enjoyed the dance battle though.
Oh, that's great. But there's nothing to the villain. Like there's no character. But to be fair, like we're introducing Nebula and Gamora, and they're directly tied to Thanos. It's more of a character here and stuff. It's all fine if you ask me. This is, I think, the first movie where Josh Brolin is starting to. I don't think they're at that point yet. For a while, it was. I don't know how they did Thanos before him, but I think he only got announced for Infinity War.
Yeah.
Or maybe Guardians 2.
The Phantasm in chat says maybe the best opening credits.
Oh right.
And I'd probably agree with that. I really, really enjoyed that.
Yeah. Ragnarok has a really strong one too. It's the only one I can see on here that would compete with that. We'll talk about it when we get to it.
Yeah.
I would say I like Ragnarok's a little bit more. Guardians is great, and Guardians came first and like kind of led the way for that. Guardians 2 also has a really strong opening. I'd say there's your top 3 right there.
Yeah.
In some order. That's another one we could do. Although openings are tough because there's like 3 great ones, probably 5 or 4 of them okay ones, and then the rest are like generic music-y kind of ones. So, and just a strong movie overall. Good characters. A huge risk on Marvel's part at the time. No one had heard of Guardians of the Galaxy. Me and my buddy were really excited about it. Because we had read the comics that like this was all based on like the specific version of the Guardians that this was all based on, because there's more. And they would later, that team in Volume 2 that shows up and is led by like Sylvester Stallone, that's like the more original team and stuff. And everyone knows the newer one. But it's a great movie. I loved it. I don't have much else to add to that one. That was your number 8?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, unless there's something else you had to say for that. But just a strong movie overall. Good spacefaring adventure considering that was all new too. Yeah. So it introduced the Guardians, it introduced the idea of Marvel being in space and stuff. And I guess it had been flirted with before, but this movie did a lot. It's a damn good. We're getting into like top tier stuff. Given that, I'm a little shocked at myself. Number 8 for me is Spider-Man: Homecoming.
Oh, okay.
One of my top Spider-Man movies. Like I won't say much more until we get to it, but that's
Yeah. Okay.
We're getting to the point where I love every single movie that I'm about to say. So.
Yeah. I'd agree with that.
I could easily like switch them around and argue it still.
Yeah.
Kinda. Not the top 3. There's like a step up we're taking. I'd say around top 5 or so.
Yeah. So I have Infinity War.
Oh, okay, interesting. All right, so neither of us are talking about it.
No.
The higher it gets, the more it's gonna like all start coming in at once.
Yeah.
Because we're still at 8.
So at
you're 7.
Yeah. So that for me was Civil War.
My number 7 is Captain America: Civil War.
There we go. Perfect.
Yeah, that makes sense. Even where this is going. Yeah. So I remember when this trailer came out, and I know for a fact you've now read the actual Civil War comic.
Yep.
Me and my buddy were looking at the trailer and we're a little disappointed. A lot of it showed off that airplane hangar scene, and we were like, this feels empty and kind of like drab compared to the scene that's based off.
Yeah, I would totally agree with you on that.
Especially just going by the trailer and stuff. Then the movie comes out. I gotta be honest, that port scene works better with less heroes because you can follow what's going on more easily.
Yeah.
I love this movie. I gotta say, like, there's not a lot wrong with it. It's not as good as Winter Soldier, in my opinion, which you would have pulled down to oblivion were not for me.
I know. See, and this is why it's a good thing that this is a dual list.
Yeah.
So that way I can't tank certain ones, you can't tank certain ones.
Yeah. Which we would have. No, it's why I like the system and stuff, but it's just a strong movie overall. I think there's a real genuine divide that happens between Cap and Tony that lasts until Endgame pretty much and doesn't feel forced much.
I like how when watching the movie you can find yourself on either team depending on what your kind of ideals are overall. From watching the movie, like just depending on how you feel, kind of your morals wise on,
I guess,
certain topics, it makes it to where I have a couple people who I know who were firmly on Team Cap. I know some people who were firmly on Team
I'd say
Iron Man.
Politically, I'm on Cap's side. Although we've talked about before, it's the same flaw with the comics, where it's like, well, you can't rebel against everyone in the government, and that becomes even more ridiculous in the movie, where Cap doesn't have an army of superheroes to back him up.
Yeah.
Like not a full army like he does in the comics. But I found what the movie has that the comics don't is Tony very much has a personal grievance going on here.
Yes.
That felt legitimate. And all the stuff going on with Winter Soldier helps to buoy Tony's side a little bit, because it's like, well, the guy's an assassin, and Cappy is being ridiculous about it, at the time especially. Like, it's just like, oh, this brainwashed assassin that you're trying to protect. Anyone else would be in jail right now if he wasn't your buddy from the 40s. And Black Panther is great. I was going to mention that. Like, this is his introduction. I think that helps him down the road a little bit, and it's a cool introduction for the character overall. I think that was well done because there's this political angle to it, so it felt so organic.
Yes.
It would be weird if this story happened and Black Panther wasn't introduced, and then we find out. Well, I guess it'd be okay because Wakanda's secretive and stuff.
Yeah.
But it's just so natural to bring him in here.
It just made sense.
It's the opposite of Hawkeye and Thor. I think Tony did a good job at like having Tony get into this all as lost. Ant-Man's great. I know you're saying like you didn't feel anything. I like Ant-Man and the Wasp.
I appreciated him in the scene because you're able to continue, or you were able to just really feel for him and understand. Okay, this is the kind of character it can be. It can be a lot of fun.
Yeah,
you can do some great things with the character with these powers.
I agree with all that. Because that's all fresh back then too, right? Like they hadn't done Giant Man yet. And it's just a fun movie overall. It's got a lot going on. Someone has, like, I think it was Honest Trailers actually pointed out that there's a lot of similarities between Helmut Zemo, who's I guess the villain of this movie, we'll say, and his plan, and Lex Luthor's plan from Batman v Superman. It is very similar, like very similar, in terms of not even just the overall structure of their plans, but how complicated and insane they are.
Yeah.
But it works in this movie. And I think part of it is we just know these characters now, so that you can kind of push things a little bit. That's where I said, like, the conflict, the personal conflict, the problems. Let's put it that way, because this is before anything, right? Like, before Captain America came back from time, before Tony Stark was a thing as Iron Man. So why is Winter Soldier assassinating these two industrialists, and that was never super clear.
Yeah.
But it works for what the movie needed, and I liked it. Yeah, I don't have a lot of complaints. It's a good movie. Little things don't work, but it's so fun.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it doesn't matter.
Overall, I enjoyed it.
This is also... Sorry, yeah. I was just going to say... So I mentioned earlier when we had Age of Ultron, like, we needed time for the Avengers to be a team and be something, so we don't have their introduction in Avengers and then everything ends in Infinity War Endgame. I still feel like that's kind of what happened. This movie really helps make there be, like, stuff in between for everyone. That's so important. And I like it wouldn't be there with this movie. Not enough, at least.
Yeah, no, I fully agree with that. It really divides people, and that was a good thing about it. It gave you a chance to learn the individual motives for the characters and kind of see where they stand on the whole topic at large.
Phantasm asked what team we're on. I think we kind of got into that a bit. Like, we're a little divided. I would say still broadly Cap, because I don't care about Tony's parents. Like, not that much. Like, but we did a whole debate on this, you and I, that never ended up getting aired, as you are aware. But we'll probably on Patreon eventually. But like, I think Cap's right morally, but has no plan practically. So I don't think I would join him. And especially not in this movie where there's no plan. In the comics, at least, there's more of like, you're joining an army and there's fugitives and they have places to hide and there's a whole infrastructure in place. Here it's like, we got 5 guys and 2 of them have powers. Like,
hey, you want to just join us on like just going against this thing? Yeah, cool.
It's cool. Oh yeah, and then the other thing I was gonna add, it's cool how this movie does a lot to create the relationship between Scarlet Witch and Vision, and then have them separate and fight, and like it's like that's pretty organic, given that's a big thing to do in a movie. Yeah.
And I would say that I'm kind of the same way, much more towards Team Cap, but as at least in the movies here, I wouldn't join.
They're not wrong either, especially in this movie. They do a better job about phrasing it. It's like, well, like, what? This guy blew up in the market. Like, what the hell are you guys doing? Like, we can't... There's going to be this cloud... Like, there is a question there, and that's from the original Civil War too, and there's something to that.
Yeah.
This one did a better job about it not being as brutal either. Like, in Civil War, the comics, it's join our side and reveal your secret identity, or go to, like, this nightmare prison is like this huge violation of not just human rights, but like Tony was about it all. Maybe near the end they were starting to get that way with Tony, but like just to push the conflict a bit.
Yeah.
Okay, so that was our number 7s. So who goes first with 6? Do you remember? I go first, I think, because
no, you went first. You went very first overall, so you were 23, which means I'm even odds.
Oh, okay.
So my number 6 was Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2.
Okay. My number 6 is Avengers Endgame.
Okay.
So then I go with number 5. Yeah, sorry, I just saw a comment. Only 2 have superpowers, but the 2 are Scarlet Witch and Ant-Man. That's a good point. They are like the 2 most powerful. Took me a second to read, like, to get what he was saying. So I go first with number 5?
I believe so, yes.
Wait, no.
Wait.
You... Oh, yeah, no, it's odd. Okay, yeah. My number 5 is Thor Ragnarok.
Okay.
Jeez. I can't believe we had another no thing round.
I think I'm off here. Because... Yeah. Yeah, no, because I did a little bit of flipping around on my page, so I'm a little off here.
Because you said number 5.
Yeah, so that was...
Because you got an arrow here.
So. Yeah, so I moved that down. I did a couple changes just because what was off my phone I didn't fully agree with, so just moved that over. So I said that...
Oh, whatever. We'll figure it out. Here, well... Here's what's left. Spider-Man Homecoming.
Yep.
Avengers Endgame.
Yep.
Ragnarok.
Yep.
No, you said that one.
Yep.
Guardians 2, you said that one. Infinity War, you said that one, and Black Panther.
Yeah. So it was Endgame, Homecoming, Black Panther, Ragnarok, and which one?
I haven't had you say Black Panther yet.
Yeah, no, I
oh, okay.
That was in my
list. Sorry, I get it. Sorry, let me start again then.
Yeah.
Homecoming, Endgame, Ragnarok, no, you said that one, and Black Panther.
Yeah, so we're at 4 then.
Oh, okay. So I must be one behind then.
All right.
So I said Thor Ragnarok. Your number 5 has already been covered in this somehow.
Yeah.
And then you start with number 4.
All right. So my number 4 is Endgame.
Okay, so then that's our next one.
Yeah.
Makes sense. And it should be about right there. Really? Hold on. Now what do we do?
So we still need to talk about Infinity War Volume 2, Homecoming, Black Panther, Ragnarok, Winter Soldier.
Okay. And then the one and Avengers Endgame.
So
yeah. Okay, good. We're on track. It just seemed like we were one behind now, like on here. But it seems like less because our numbers are like we still got a good amount to talk about.
Yeah. Our numbers are very skewed from what the numbers you guys are seeing.
So well, because we're right at the top of our respective lists. So like everything from here on out, I think it's gonna start triggering stuff.
Yeah.
There's only one movie I have on my thing that neither of us have mentioned yet.
Yeah.
Which is interesting.
Same. Okay, at least we're at the same spot there.
Which is kind of cool because I wouldn't have expected that.
No.
I thought for sure there was going to be a difference. We'll see where that movie goes. But for now, we're talking about Endgame. I think Endgame's right about where it should be. I had it at number 6. It's ranked number 7 overall. You had it a little higher, I think.
Yep. Yeah, I had it at my 4.
Yeah, everything's going to be a little bit lower with that anyhow, the way it's all flushing out.
Yeah.
Endgame is pretty great. A friend who will be on these videos and has already said this sometimes hates this movie, but I like it. I think I definitely benefited from waiting to watch it at home, so I don't have to sit through 3 hours in the theater. Because it feels like 3 different movies.
Yes.
But 3 great movies, too.
So I was actually... I consider myself lucky. When I went to go see this movie in theaters, exactly halfway through the movie, there was a glitch in the projector to where you could no longer see the video, but you could still hear some of the audio. So the theater shut it down for like 5 minutes, gave us a nice intermission right in the middle of the movie.
Yeah.
So for me, that made it so much easier for me to enjoy it.
This movie should have had an intermission. I can tell you where it should have happened too. They get the thing, they go through all the time stuff. I don't even remember what happens exactly. Paul Rudd looks out the window. He's like, the world's back alive. And then everything blows up.
Yeah.
And intermission. Take a break. Because that's what I did. I paused the movie. I didn't even know that this was like the end of the second act and I was about to get into the big third act. I was just like, oh wow. A lot of stuff is happening, and I went out for a smoke.
Yeah.
Perfect time to do that, because then I was like in the perfect mood to do the last little bit of the movie.
Yeah.
This movie has a lot of problems, start to finish. What it does with Carol is a mess, but then she has a cool-ass moment near the end where Thanos is hitting her and it's doing nothing.
Yeah.
I was taught about how they overpowered her a bit. That scene was cool. I just wish... It was a little closer to Thor's power and not like beyond that even.
Yeah.
That's where we're getting a little uneven and well, they have to deal with that in the future. This movie is full of amazing moments, cameos to stuff that goes back to like I kept referring to Dark World because I feel like Endgame did a good job at bringing back Dark World in a fun way.
Yeah,
in a way that made me like that movie a little more.
I'd completely forgotten about Dark World when watching it, but seeing that, I'm like, oh, okay, no, I kind of do remember this.
They did a good job,
and I like the way that they did it.
They're like recreating scenes and stuff. They did a really good job at like, oh, it's like you're back there. Like they went back to this one scene from Avengers, a scene that actually didn't happen, but like would have. When Loki's being led out of the Avengers building, and it's like, well, that must have happened. We just didn't see it.
Yeah.
Like they did a lot of cool stuff at making that all feel very natural. My friend Dylan keeps calling this a series of retcons. I don't think that's right. I don't think it's not an accurate definition of a retcon. I think this movie also did a good job at saying, no, there are consequences to everything that happened in Infinity War. Those 5 years of hell didn't just go away, which I think is really cool. I thought for sure they would have done that. We would have just zapped right back to how things started. That would have been easy. They didn't do that. They didn't have to turn Hawkeye into a serial killer either. I have a lot of problems with that.
Yeah.
I don't know how they're going to reconcile with that, like, in Hawkeye's story going forward and stuff. Like, he's not the Punisher. I would have loved this movie. I would have been totally fine with all that if they go back and Hawkeye gets his family and he has a nice, happy reunion, and then Cap comes and arrests him. Because that's what Hawkeye deserved in that movie.
Yeah.
Say, oh, why do they get to live while my family dies? Whatever to that. He killed innocent people and all that.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you right now. Because how does he not know? Like, how does he know they're guilty? And, like, he's doing crazy action stuff in the scene that we see. It's like, no, it's collateral damage there. Like, you killed people.
It looks cool, though.
It looks cool, and Ronin was a cool idea. And it was a good, like... It was a good way to bring him in and be like, oh, like, he just went rogue and crazy. There just needed to... Like, there needs to be consequences to that.
Yeah.
You can't just get away with that. I don't feel it. But those are little things in an excellent movie.
Yeah.
Professor Hulk is awesome. Thanos is awesome. Like, people were talking about how it's, like, weird that it's not him from the thing, but he seems to clue in very quickly. I think his perception's a little bit beyond just, like, a standard timeline thing. Like, he seems to get it right away. Like, oh, you guys are messing around with the time zone, or timeline, but I already did all this, so I am... Like, he is that same guy.
Yeah.
I think that was all okay. I get there is a weakness there, and then the whole third act is the weakest part for sure.
Yeah.
The big climax, and someone's talking about like how ugly it looks, and it is ugly.
Yeah.
They're comparing it against something more recent, like Doctor Sleep, I think. The colors and the way they managed to make that look, that sort of thing. Yeah, and they were saying in the like I love the movie, but that thing where like the Avenger bunker is destroyed and it's just rubble. It doesn't look good for your big finale, like in terms of colors and stuff, and I would agree. That was probably not, and it didn't help anything. I get why it happened, and it was a cool moment. Such a cool moment where it's just like, oh god, I did not expect that, and that was good. A lot of good stuff.
Yeah.
I like also, like, we're looking at this poster here, and it's mostly the post, what would you call it, like blip.
I think they called it the blip in
This is the blip crew anyways. They're the ones that like survived, right? So it's like a weird hodgepodge of like a Rocket Raccoon, but no other, like a Nebula, I guess, but no other Guardians of the Galaxy. You got like Ida, that's the actress's name, but Black Panther, like all these little characters that get to have their cool moment. Not even just a moment, like the whole movie's them. And then the three main Avengers, because it is their movie, for good reason.
Yeah.
And that's actually where I don't object to Captain Marvel being out of it too much. For time's coming. And so, like, you just gotta be out of space. They just didn't have to be so obvious about it.
Yeah.
There's a way to more subtly do that. And that's where I think if Captain Marvel had taken place in between Infinity War and Endgame, it would have made more sense for her not to just be there and not be there, like, at the same time all of a sudden.
Yeah.
It's like, New York being invaded by the Chitauri isn't urgent. No one might argue it's not urgent relative to space, but you gotta show and tell and do these things. It can't just be implied.
The fact that her movie was placed a while ago at least compared to these. It's a prequel. You know she's supposed to be out there, and you just kind of it makes it hard to understand when she's going to show up, if she's gonna show up.
Yeah.
Like,
and it's quote unquote cool how she took out the big ship at the end, but I have a lot of issues with that because that gets into her powers and stuff, and it's like It's also like that's like a big nothing scene. Right? It's just like it's the same problem as her climax in the Captain Marvel movie, where she's just flying around and blasting through these space ships, and there's just nothing there.
Yeah,
like she's just like it's nothing to her. So there's no challenge. There's no weight to any of it, and the way it's shot, there's no weight to any of it because it's all space. Like there's a way to do that. You can have a big elaborate space battle where someone's flying around in space and ripping stuff up, and I haven't seen it before, but I'm sure there's a way to have like a weight to it. You know what I mean? Like that there's a physics to it. I think maybe if you dealt with compression a little bit, so like when she blasts into a wall of a spaceship, just all the air comes blowing out, and have some fun with that.
Yeah,
that'll show power. Haven't seen that from Captain Marvel, I should say. I cried at this movie.
Yeah.
A couple times, mostly just around Cap and Tony. The best part, and then we get into like what I was saying about First Avengers. Like, oh, I wish they had done a little more with the romance, because when he actually gets back, it is moving and sad, and it ties it all together in this 20-ish or so, however many years, like insane experience. And I felt things, and that's where like people complain about like the continuity and retcons. I don't give a crap about any of that.
Yeah,
that means nothing to me, because this movie elicited a feeling in me.
Yeah.
And that's like what a movie should do more than anything else. So nothing else matters, like, to me, like about this particular movie and stuff.
Like I was having a discussion about this, I believe it was just yesterday actually, about how I felt about Captain America's kind of, how they tied that up, and
yeah.
I genuinely did enjoy it. I was happy for the character. Like it did it for me. I wasn't angry. It
was a good ending for both of them, him and Tony. And then it was kind of cool. I like Thor's got stuff to do. We just found out a way to make his character fun, so Chris Hemsworth doesn't want to leave. The only downside about Endgame, I guess, I don't even hate it. You can very much see, okay, this character's going here, this character's going here, and like we're trying to figure out where everyone needs to be for their post-Endgame status.
Yeah.
So Tony and Cap are on their way out, so they got to get an ending. Thor doesn't want to do that, and they got crazy plans for Thor, so he's going to go join the Guardians.
Yeah.
Scarlet Witch, Black Widow is getting her own story. So she's got to die.
Yeah.
And because it's like a standalone, and she doesn't want to do a million more movies. She wants to do one more movie.
Yeah.
That's her movie. And the more I'm seeing about that and learning about that, that is more like what Captain Marvel's prequel should have been. Because it's going to be during the blip time, what I understand.
Okay.
And then flashing back from before that and stuff too. But if I understand it correctly, that's the idea. And I'm all for that. That's so much more interesting than what I thought it was going to be.
Oh, yeah.
And that's where, like, Tony Stark can have a cameo and stuff, because he is. And it's like, oh, I didn't know that was going to happen anymore. I don't know what the plan is. Like, I don't think... The MCU's not going in, like, an obvious direction, but then, like, that's where Loki has to escape at a certain point in this movie, because he's got his series coming up, and he's dead otherwise.
Yeah.
And all these other little things, they got a little bit of cheating, but not so much that it ever bothered me. And I kind of liked it, because it was just, like... They weren't predictable about it, and it wasn't like railroading. It just felt like, oh, Loki just escaped, because like, well, there's a lot of chaotic stuff going around. It'd be weird if nothing like that happened.
Yeah. Of course he escaped.
Yeah. And on top of all of this, so many cool cameos. Like, just so many, right? The Ancient One, she has a really cool role in this entire movie, because she explains the physics of the time travel to all of this, and what they have to do and why. And in a very clear way, considering that it's all very complicated, I would say. I followed it easily, but I think most people did too. And there's more, like all the Crossbones shows up. They have all the guys in the elevator from the Hail Hydra scene from Winter Soldier, like just details.
Oh yeah,
so good. Great movie overall. I'm right up there with it being near the top, but not the very top. I'm surprised you put Infinity War lower than it, but we'll get into that, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, what?
Oh, no, that was it.
Yeah, that's about it. Okay, so that was your number 4?
Yes.
My number 4 is Winter Soldier.
Okay. I am glad you pulled it up. Especially that far for me.
Yeah. What was yours?
So mine was down at 14.
Yeah, that's a pretty big difference. Not a huge one. I was at 4, so about 10 points, and then it ends up at number 6.
Yeah.
I would say even number 6 honestly feels a little low in my views. It's a very good movie. I don't know what you're talking about. This movie, okay, I'm going to say my thing first. This movie very much, I think, and maybe you don't have this perspective as much because you're a little bit younger than me. Like, it was, I think, the first real signal of like, oh, the MCU can like really make a good movie. Not just like a good comic book movie, like you wouldn't have to know anything about anything. You can just enjoy this as a cool action movie, and it's a cool action. And everything else about it really holds up. I found this used to be lower. This used to be lower than Civil War for me.
Okay.
But the action holds up really well, and almost like more so than Civil War. And the human drama between him and Bucky, I found really, really strong. Okay, sorry.
Yeah. Oh no. For me, once we got to, I think it was 14, at least on my list, when it came into, okay, I genuinely do enjoy these movies.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily have anything in particular or to say bad against the movie.
Okay.
But for me, there was just also nothing that I was able to pull out of my memory when looking over all these.
I can kind of see that. I remember the first time I watched this movie, and there isn't like a ton to Winter Soldier in terms of like, oh, like all these emotions and stuff. Like it was so heavily advertised to me, like going into it, like how great it was, that at first I was like, oh, that's it. But I find it holds up, and it's one of those movies that I've come to appreciate more and more as we go on. There's another one we haven't talked about yet that I feel is like that I've come to like more and more the more I've seen it. I also really like Black Widow in this movie. I thought she was cool as like his sidekick, basically, we'll say, but really just his partner.
Yeah.
And they made a good team. I found they did a good job at like, well, there's like a weird flirtation thing going on between them, but not really. Like, it's not a romance.
Yeah.
And even though they make out, like they do that just to get through their stuff, like to hide at one point or something.
Yeah.
But like Cap's still pining for the other lady, you know, whatever. The whole thing that we've been talking about. And then there's the other new character who's a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent that they were kind of potentially considering that I think was briefly in Civil War, but kind of all got waylaid.
Yeah.
And then I think she's going to do something else now. Like they have some idea for Winter Soldier and Falcon series. Like she's going to come back for that.
All right. Yeah, no, I see Black Widow was probably my favorite part of it.
Yeah.
That just... So, and that's just it for me. She was probably my favorite part of the movie. And that's really the only thing.
Well, I would say, like, just the three of them, like, with Nick Fury, like, so those three, like, carry it a lot. And, like, they carry a lot of the action, and they sort of bring it all together. Thought it was interesting, like, what they were talking about with Hydra and stuff. And that's what threw me off at first, because it was like, were they fighting Hydra in, like, 2 movies ago? Relative to this timeline in the MCU in Age of Ultron? Because we couldn't tell. Because this movie ended up defining, I think, Hydra in the MCU.
Yeah.
And it's pretty cool. It's a little weird how S.H.I.E.L.D. just died because of all of this. And I don't think they ever quite squared that circle. But I understand that gave the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. show a big... Like, they managed to find a way to tie it into this in an interesting way. I was already done with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. by the time we got to this part. Like, in the time period in 2014, looking at that poster there, which is amazing. But, no, I hate Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And it was just interesting. The whole helicarrier thing, I thought that worked. Everything kind of worked for me in this movie.
Yeah.
I kind of see what you're saying, though. Like, it can slide, and mine was closer to where you were. 14, I didn't realize it was... Like, that's not super low. That's where I had Doctor Strange.
Yeah.
I had a lot of negative things to say about Doctor Strange that just sort of came out, but honestly, like, I like that movie. I was a little surprised at what... Yeah.
Yeah, no, like, once again, as I said, I did enjoy it, and I am glad that you were here to pull up the...
Chat kind of got out of control with me. They've been talking to each other, so I'm just sort of let it go. Yeah, mostly just people agreeing with what we said so far.
Yeah. I did enjoy the movie. All in all, even though I had it at 14 on my list.
We got called White Knights for having Captain Marvel at number 18.
I did see that, and I'm trying not to laugh, I'll be honest.
You guys are babies. I don't know if he's joking or not.
Arden did have it as last.
I know.
I can take full credit for it being that high on the list.
I thought for sure I was going to get people being like, oh, just typical guy thing and stuff. And that's like when we get to my number like 1, that's where I find it really interesting. But his name is NPC number like and then a string of numbers. That seems he might be like that seems almost satirical to me. It does seem like that seems like he's joking. But I am laughing. I am laughing at you. Okay, I go first with number 3, I believe.
Yes.
Which we're definitely talked about. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2.
Okay.
Number 5, okay. I had it at number 3, and I would argue it, and this is kind of a top 3. Oops, Galaxy. Guardians. Although, this one, I would say, is it's very subjective. Like, it really kind of comes down to, like, how you respond to its themes of fatherhood and stuff.
Yeah.
And I've heard people say it's like their favorite. Lindsay Ellis, a YouTuber, made a really good video about like why it's her favorite movie, like of the MCU ones, and why it elicited a very specific emotional reaction out of her. I'm closer in her camp than anything. Phantasm says, I love Guardians of the Galaxy 2. I cried. I assume I cried around the whole Yondu thing. I don't actually remember if I did or not, but even if I didn't, it resonated with me emotionally. And that ties into how it uses music too. Its soundtrack, I would argue, isn't quite as overall polished. Like, it's just a little more like, they went for some of the songs that were popular from the time period and just sort of fun.
Yeah.
More fun went out, but then when we get to like The Chain by Fleetwood Mac, and that alone is like, no, like that, like they used that song twice, and that really did it.
Yeah.
But then there's an Elvis song, and Elvis, like, it doesn't really fit with everything else that they have on their soundtrack and stuff, right? Like, so just a little off in terms of their soundtrack, but not enough. Like, but that Elvis soundtrack is used with the Arrow scene when he's killing everyone in the ship. So who cares?
I don't mind that so much, just because I'm thinking back to when I was younger and I'd make a mixtape and I'd have every genre imaginable on it. So for me, it didn't bother me too much because it was the awesome mix.
Honestly, the only reason I think I'm bringing it up is that I think I almost said Guardians has the best soundtrack, which I think, or maybe you said that, and I was like, I think I'd agree, except Guardians 2 does use it very selectively, but a little bit better.
Yeah.
It also, its opening is strong. Like someone was saying Guardians 1 has got a strong opening. Guardians Volume 2, it's got a good opening. Mr. Blue Sky with the Electric Light Orchestra, and then it's James Gunn dancing as Baby Groot in that scene. It's really well done. And like I thought it was maybe Guardians 1 kind of does a little better job with it overall. Like, it's just a neat opening.
Yeah.
And then, like, Endgame did a fun... You see the other side of that, where you're just seeing, like, someone with, like, not hearing the music. That was good.
Yeah, it made me smile when I saw that.
But Volume 2's opening, I find, like, it really just got me super excited for everything that's coming.
Yeah.
I just feel it did a better job about that. And it can do that because we know these characters, so you can be anticipated, and then you have all of them fighting together because it's the sequel and you can do that.
Yeah.
It got to benefit from all that. Ego. Holy crap. That was really good. In an era where Marvel was basically coming out of a common complaint being that their villains are not great, Ego, the Living Planet with Kurt Russell and everything, really good.
Yeah.
Very different from his comic book counterpart, but I would say vastly improved. What they did with his character was like all that fatherhood stuff, like where he's impregnating ladies and killing them so that they can try and birth a successor for it. And that's all new, but so good. Like, great twist. Didn't really see it coming. I knew he wasn't gonna be a good guy, but I didn't realize like, they went full tilt with it, and like that ends up driving Peter Quill nuts, and they did a pretty good job with it all. And all of this wonderful progress we got with Gamora got undone in the next movie. I mixed feelings on that part, but otherwise a great movie.
Yeah.
And that's not this movie's fault, though.
No, taking nothing away from this movie.
This movie did a great job at putting Gamora and Peter Quill in an interesting place. But James Gunn had input into everything that happened to the Guardians in Infinity War and Endgame, so he knew that was going to happen. Because this Gamora dies.
Yeah.
And that's important to remember. But I don't have much else to add. Good movie overall.
Yeah, I once again, these are some of the best movies.
Yeah.
They're just overall, they're going to be good movies. The things I had to say about the original Guardians, where Dave Bautista really kind of caught me in the first movie. Once again, I actually enjoyed his character in this movie and how unaware he is.
That's true.
It sold me just how Dave was able to play him.
Yeah, I found the only thing about this movie is a little more like, okay, I get the joke. That happened a little more. Someone was talking about how his relationship with Mantis is a little weird, and just a little just odd in how it was done. It's definitely done for laughs, but at like a certain point, it's that is a weaker aspect of it. And I know I said that like saying like, you could carry whole franchises. Like, not like that he couldn't.
Yeah.
Not that jokey. And I know I was describing like a very jokey scenario with him talking to the camera and stuff, but it's like, I'm also describing a certain brutality that needs to go with it, and
there has to be a counterpart to
it. Or a counterweight to it, even. Like, a character would do that too. Yeah, like a counterpart, but something. Without it, it's a little odd. Okay, so then we get to your number 3 pick, I believe.
So my number 3 pick was Homecoming.
Okay.
So Spider-Man Homecoming.
Yeah, I said that a while ago.
Yes.
8 shouldn't be considered that while ago. I like this again. Like, it's like, oh, I don't have a lot of critical things to say about it.
Yeah.
This is my favorite Spider-Man movie. I think. Yeah, because I'm not about to argue that I like 2 more.
No.
Not prepared to do the Galaxy. Yeah, this is my favorite Spider-Man movie, so it gives you an idea of how high up these Marvel movies kind of are at this level.
Yeah.
Love the Vulture.
I loved how they were able to actually insert the Vulture into.
He's so good.
Him.
Michael Keaton's great, and then his personality. That scene where he's just sitting there in the car talking to Peter Parker is so good. And I didn't see it coming at all. Like, I guess they had set up that he'd learned the identity or whatever, but it just was like, this is so good. And then he chooses to keep it secret while he's in prison. It's like, oh, Vulture's an interesting character.
I actually I felt for his motives.
Yeah.
I fully understood.
Even beyond that, like, oh, he's in the climax, and then like that climax felt like very grounded, and I'm sure he's part of it because he's flying around on his wings and stuff. And then like it wasn't so much about like, oh god, the whole world's gonna explode because of the Vulture. It's like, no, this building's gonna get hit, and the whole city's gonna be in chaos. Like, it's enough stakes all on its own with that, and that felt like the right level for this Spider-Man, especially this story.
Yes,
where it's all about him not needing Tony's crazy suit, but that suit is so fun. That Ferris Bueller scene's a lot of fun. That scene where him and the suit are just locked up in some weird vault somewhere for hours in the story and a few minutes in the movie. Great. That was perfect. Like, there's just not a lot to it, but it was awesome. And then they recreate like this awesome early comic scene where he has to like dig himself out of the rubble.
Yeah. That
was really well done and super Spider-Man-y. I like the love interest. They're showing Zendaya on here, but it's not her. Right? It's Liz Allen in this movie. I forget what the actress's name is.
I'm trying to think because Zendaya was MJ in the first.
Oh, she is.
Yeah.
But that's not the love interest.
Oh.
Vulture's daughter is the love interest.
Oh, yes. Sorry, I forgot about it.
Yeah. She's good. I liked her. Like, I like how it's not just Mary Jane right out of the gate, but she's there. It's not like it's out of nowhere. They're kind of setting her up for the next movie.
Yeah.
But then they have the love interest from this movie, and her character isn't useless. She serves a very important point, as it all turns out.
Yeah.
And then the DC scene is great too.
Yeah. Like, I felt completely okay with it. Like,
some
now thinking
movie.
back, I'm able to remember. But like, when I first saw it, I was a little disappointed that MJ wasn't.
Oh, really?
The character that I wanted it to be.
Oh, okay.
I wanted her to have the bigger role in the first, but that's because I was a fan of Zendaya before the movie came out, so I had a bias.
I didn't know her
from
much.
The actress.
I had been sold on her because they saw a really cute clip of her and Tom Holland dancing together before like this movie ever came out or was a thing at all, and I was like, oh, they're perfect. Like, that's I could see the chemistry just in that little YouTube thing that they made of them just dancing together. It's like, oh yeah, that's enough. Like, that'll work. I thought it was such a good strength of Liz Allen, like the other love interest character, that when she had to leave, and not even like just like, oh, dad's going to jail and she's going to go live with her mom, like her character had to leave.
Yeah.
It felt like a real loss to me. I was like, oh, like, I'm going to miss her. She was a cool love interest. She could have been here for the whole trilogy and I would have liked those two together too. Like, it felt like actually like, oh, we're losing something here. In a good way, like in a way that added to the movie. Like, it was like, okay, just there's consequences to this whole movie as it turns out and stuff, which is good. And all the stuff with some people really hate this movie to the extent that this would be their bottom.
Yeah.
Because they feel it's very like they don't like the thing between Tony and Spider-Man. Here, like, it's good in this movie though. I like it.
Yeah.
I like the weirdness between Tony and Aunt May, I should say. And how that's never really been explicitly dealt with. And same thing with Far From Home. That was a strength in Far From Home. It shifts to Happy Hogan, but that's fine.
Yeah.
If anything, that actually felt a little more natural and less like, Tony Stark always, that was a little weird, but Happy, it's like, oh, good for them.
Yeah. I'm rooting for Happy.
Yeah, like those two, and it's Jon Favreau too, and I don't know, something about that just makes it like, oh, like, yeah, he should just stay around as long as they can pull it off kind of thing.
Yeah.
I don't know if I necessarily agree with it being above Guardians 2 personally. Like, whatever, it's just this, but...
I see why...
It's my one point
people might not be as happy that I have it this high on my list.
Yeah.
But it's a movie that I will go back and watch. Well, it was something that I will find myself watching again probably very soon.
Right.
So I do think it
gets Spider-Man a little bit more than even like the Tobey Maguire movies, which some people are like going to freak out at the thought of, but like those Tobey Maguire ones get like the spirit of early Spider-Man, right? Like, I think Tom Holland Spider-Man movies more so I can't say this is in Far From Home at all, but Homecoming does a good job at like, well, he's the underdog character. Like, they really do a good job with the underdog character arc in Homecoming.
Yeah.
Or even like not underdog stuff, but like him holding that boat together. It's like good feat of strength and stuff. A little too Spider-Man 2 in that moment, if you ask me. I like the subway scene, but you can't just copy the subway scene.
Yeah.
But it was a good scene, and then that's where like Tony comes back into the story at that point, and it works. The whole movie works in my eyes.
I really just don't have anything terrible to say.
The only thing about all of this is like I don't know what Sony's plans are long term with Spider-Man. Someone was asking us about that, and it kind of held off until now. I don't know. I don't see any of this working outside of the MCU.
No.
Like, their whole plan to, like, at least the third Spider-Man movie is going to be part of the MCU. And then Tom Holland, I was thinking about it, I was like, well, I can't imagine his contract goes much more than that because he's been in so many movies at this point as Spider-Man. Yeah. He might just be like, well, I'm not doing more if you're not going to cooperate with Disney Sony because, like, it's not fun. And he said, like, he doesn't get it either. So as long as they do it with the third one, that might just be it then. And they can try something separate without it. But they're on such a good track with all this with Spider-Man. Like, even with my problems with Far From Home aside, at the core of it's all here.
Yeah.
And like I said, it felt like it all just came right back to me the second they went back to New York City. So, yeah. And that might be part of my problem, too, is like Homecoming does do a class trip. And it did have that novelty. And it was fun. And we went to Washington, D.C., and they used that well.
Yeah. And I felt that it didn't go on for too long.
Yeah.
It, like... You could say kind of towards the end, maybe a little, but even then I wasn't mad about it.
Yeah, and I have to say, like this is where I'm starting to like switch back to like, oh yeah, this is where Far From Home started to drop to me.
Yeah,
because in comparing these two, like, oh yeah, I'm starting to get reminded of why I like Homecoming so much more than Far From Home.
Yeah,
and why I really like Homecoming. And the good side of it is though, is like now that we're back in New York, maybe Spider-Man 3 can kind of get back on track and do things a little better and maybe not be as boring. But yes, I digress. So that would have been your number 3. So then you go first with number 2.
So my number 2 was Black Panther.
Okay. My number 2 is Infinity War. Okay. That I was about to be like, wait, we're missing. No, we're not missing something. No. I know what your number 1 is now, though.
Yes, you do.
Well, we know each other's, but like it's just interesting. Like there's okay, so Avengers Infinity War, number 3, about right. It's one off from my number 2. What was yours? Yours is
mine was at number 7.
That I am surprised, although not entirely, because I will tell you right now what I like. Okay, so I love Infinity War's ending. Crazy ambitious for any blockbuster, even with the whole plan of like following it up with Endgame already in motion and everything.
Yeah,
still ballsy to just like end it with like Spider-Man dying in Tony Stark's arms and stuff. Well, hold on, because and just a really strong movie overall. Thanos is great and does a lot of things right. Where this movie's weaker and where this drifted down from number 1 really for me is like those action set pieces can really kind of just be like a lot at once and not much to them.
Yeah.
The last one in Wakanda is awesome, but I'm thinking more of like early on when it's like they're in London and Black Widow and Vision are like fighting off the one guy and it's like, whoa, like this is really early on in the movie and it's not like super clear where we're going with things yet and stuff. There are aspects of it I get where it's weaker, But that ending and Thanos really was enough for me.
Yeah. For me, I think the first few times I watched it, it just felt so disjointed at times that I think that's just kind of what brought it down for me. As I said, I had it at my number 7, which in the grand scheme of things, still very high on the list. I really enjoyed the movie. But it just...
This is pretty much the same situation as Homecoming then.
Yeah. Like it just felt more disjointed than I wanted to have to... I had to pay far more attention than I feel I wanted to at the time.
That's kind of what I was dancing around. Like, as we're coaching in the action scenes, but that's the end result of it. Is it's just like, oh, we're going a million places at once. Endgame went more places, but very cleanly explained.
Yes.
Like, and to be honest, like, this is the one time I think I'll ever compare Endgame favorably to Infinity War, because I think it's reversed. I think Infinity War is the much stronger movie, but it is like a cleaner movie in Endgame, kind of.
I think that's why I had Endgame higher on my list, is just because for me, it just didn't feel
I really hadn't thought about that until you brought it up. It's like, well, they did explain that well, as opposed to Infinity War, where it's like, well, he's getting those stones, and we know where they are, and it's like... Maybe I could have told you where they were going into Infinity War. Like, I don't know where they are now even, but they're gone now, right?
I have no clue.
I think they got destroyed at the end of Endgame. But like, they're just pulling them left and right, and they didn't explain them well. Like, in Endgame, they went back and were like, well, this is where this one was, this is where this happened with this one, and they actually sat down and explained it at one point. No such thing in Infinity War, and there's just like a lot of stuff going on. They also kill a lot of... Like, they get a little nuts with it. Like, I don't mind it near the end, where that's the whole point of it, but that gets blunted a little bit when all the Asgardians are dead, including Loki and Heimdall. All these other characters are just dropping one after the other in the early moments of the movie. It's like, oh, wait. Now you're killing off too many people. The only cool side of that is that also made it so that when they undid the snap, it didn't just save everyone. Like, it's like, well, Vision's still gone.
Yeah.
To be determined in... WandaVision. Who else died? Loki died, and that's why they had to do the whole thing about him. And a couple other characters. Oh, Gamora. That's another big one. I'm sure there's more. Like, little things. No, those are the big 3, at least, that were early deaths that aren't just going to be hand-waved away, and they got to deal with them in these other movies and stuff. And I kind of came out of Infinity War knowing that. Yeah. I was like, no, they can't reverse all of them. They're not going to do it that way. I was like, I'd be shocked if everyone came back to life, because of the way they killed them off in like a staggered order and stuff.
Which I agree. Like, that, for me, that's the thing that I came out of. I remember having a discussion afterwards, like, okay, they're going to bring everyone back, but not everyone. So having the discussions on, okay, who do we think it doesn't work with?
Phantasm, who, by the way, has been sitting here this whole time with us. Thanks to you for joining us. We're at 2.5 hours. And we're not even at the top 2. But he makes a good point here, and he wishes there was more interactions between Strange and Stark. That, like, all that stuff was so cool. Like, seeing some of those characters interact for the first time, Thor meeting the Guardians and stuff, that really carried a lot of the movie for me. In a fun way. Yeah, it's just, like you said, like, it's not much of an argument between us, because, it's pretty close. Yeah. I did like it a little more than you, and the other thing is, I got, like, sometimes it's just little experiences, like sitting in that theater. Did you see it in theaters?
I did.
Okay.
Yes.
I don't know what your experience is like. I was at a full theater early on in it coming out, and you could hear a pin drop at the end, and it, like, really added to just, like, because it was pretty noisy. Like, not at night, like, there's just that din in the theater, popcorn rustling, chatting or laughing right up until the snap, and then it all went real quiet, and it was a cool effect. It, like, I had little things like that in other movie going experiences, but nothing quite like that, and that left me, like, with an impression. Yeah. And for the longest time, this was my number 1.
And I get that. I get that. Yeah. I'm willing to talk about my one first.
Well, okay,
because I think
here's the
with
thing.
The overall,
I was gonna say, because it was designed that you would basically get the number 1. I was about to suggest we would swap it, because my number 1 is your number 2.
Yes, and my number 1 is your number 5.
Yeah.
So I'm okay with
our number 2
switching it up for. So number 2 was Ragnarok.
Yeah, Thor Ragnarok overall. I think that is more natural. Normally, if it was closer, I would just be like, no, it's going to be your one.
Yeah.
Because we set it up that way and you're the guest. But no, I was going to suggest that too because I noticed it. Like the second we figured it out, I was going to suggest that as well because it's like, yeah. If we're that close. Like, and we'll get into the other one when we get to it. I wanted this open. So, Thor Ragnarok. Talking about, well, the first thing that I think of, and it's appropriate, talk about a strong opening. Led Zeppelin with like him fighting Surtur, and like so much is great in that moment.
Yeah.
They didn't fully market it this way, but there was like at least a hint like, oh no, Surtur's going to be in this movie. And like I thought he was going to be the main bad guy that Hela was going to be the vanguard of. And no, it's just, he's the start. And he ends up being the payoff way later. Like, such a good movie. Again, like, score, I think this is the only thing that can compete with that Avengers score. And not in the same, like, memorable cinematic way. This is just like, oh. Like,
this is just, the cool. Music works so well for the movie. It's
like that 80s hair metal kind of thing mixed with, like, that animated metal movie they made a long time ago.
I remember the one you're talking about.
Yeah, I forget what it's called, but they were parodied in South Park. It's the first time I ever heard of it, but it's influential. I had seen stuff that were inspired or parodying it before that, but didn't recognize it until I learned. Yeah. This movie introduces Valkyrie, who's great, and she's so funny. Like, she's at her peak. Well, so she's only been in 2 movies so far, but she's so good in this movie when drunk and just like a complete mess. And like, kind of a love interest, but not really. Yeah. Whatever hints they had in this movie were instantly shut down in Endgame in a scene I really liked. Hulk's in this movie. Yeah. It's the best thing ever. And he fights a giant wolf in this movie. And it's the best thing ever. This is a really strong movie that also has been my number 1 in the past. Yeah. And it's kind of ebbed and flowed. Where I can't defend it, and and this is a weak... Can't defend. Like, it's not a huge criticism, but someone pointed out, it's like, well, they definitely changed Thor's character, and that's a thing. But they did that to everyone. Like, everyone kind of is very jokey in this movie. Yeah. One might argue to a fault.
The thing is, I genuinely enjoyed how funny it was.
Yeah, like
that's probably why I had that at my number 1.
Let's put it that way. If this was an unfunny movie and it was this jokey, like, oh my, this would be at our bottom.
Oh, right? 100%.
Because you can't stand that. And I know we could, no human could deal with that. But everyone's great. And then I would say, what I just said about jokey, like, that's sort of, I'm echoing other criticisms because Anthony Hopkins isn't like that. He has a very serious outro, basically, in this movie. Yeah. And Hela's not like that. She's fun, and Cate Blanchett is clearly having fun.
Oh, yes.
But she's not funny. She's just like, I'm going nuts. I'm super powerful. Like, I'm just gonna tear through the Asgardians like they're nothing. I have a bit of an issue with how they just dispatched with the Warriors 3, like, without any fanfare or for noticing. Yeah. And it is weird how this movie starts almost. Like, I love where it ends, but it's weird how it kind of, like, clunks forward a little bit. Like, we get Thor coming in to Asgard. Thor, the Dark World setup, Loki was disguising himself as Odin, but we have to get that out of the way because, like, that was a late, like, plot point in a very different movie, so that gets kind of tossed out, and then we go after Mjolnir, Hela comes, that gets destroyed, Odin's gone, and then the, like, huge chunk of the movie goes to that other planet. Yeah. It feels like we're racing to get to that point. I like it. Like, yeah. Whatever. Scarro's great, so it doesn't matter.
I put it at my number 1 because
Scarro being the Jeff Goldblum planet, I should say.
Yeah. I put this at my number 1 because I genuinely enjoyed it. I laughed. Yeah. It was everything that I wanted it to be for the tone of the movie. Yeah. The tone of movie really kind of changes it for me, and that's why I put it ahead of Black Panther on my list, just because I usually want to laugh.
Yeah, and Taika Waititi, or however you say his name, the director of this movie, is damn good at humor, and this is one of the funniest comedies I've seen. Like, as a movie, one of the funniest comedies I've seen in a long time. Yeah. Because comedy movies leave a lot to be desired, broadly speaking. I've seen a couple that I liked, but like in the last year or two, which is not a good praise given that it's 24 months I'm describing. And Ragnarok is funnier than any of them. But it's so good, and I can't wait for him to do Love and Thunder. He's coming back to direct that movie, and I was like, go nuts. I can't even imagine what he's going to do with it, but I'm so excited. And like, yeah, you could take out this. Okay, everything on Scar was great because it's all like Planet Hulk stuff and Thor like seeing Banner for the first time even, and the delight on his face is so great. And it's like it's a good moment of Marvel and using the MCU effectively because they're like, well, they didn't interact much before, and Hulk doesn't like Thor. Like, we've established that. But Thor, like, it does feel like it all feels perfect. Yeah. Because Thor's reaction, I feel, is how I felt seeing Hulk and being all excited that he's in this movie and now they get to hang out together and stuff. And like, we're all Thor in that moment. And, and then it just unfolds as it does. And like, it's good. But we could just look at the climax with like Fenris, like the wolf. Yeah. Fighting the Hulk on a waterfall while all the other stuff's going on. That guy that was working for Hela ended up getting a pretty good turn. He is a character in the comics. I don't remember his name, but I think it's like the Executioner or something. He had a good storyline going for him though, and like even his whole thing about like, oh, look at my all my Earth charms and stuff, and like,
that was my favorite, and I'm glad that he used the guns.
Oh right,
and like,
I forgot about that part.
Yeah, so they tied back in.
Yeah, which
just
I didn't
these
expect.
Throwaway jokes that you just assume are throwaway.
I thought that was nothing.
And now all of a sudden he's got both guns.
And they actually did a good job too when she's going through the vault room and she comes across the Infinity Gauntlet. Fake. And but that's important like later. But also they point out like that wasn't the case originally. That thing was introduced early in Thor to be the Infinity Gauntlet. So they had to, like it was so clever. And then speaking of like a little what one would think was just a joke and like an opening in the beginning. Surtur ends up being like the big climax and what actually can defeat Hela and stuff. And it's like, well, that's clever and well done. Like,
so this was the first movie I saw in the like the Ultra AVX, like with the 4D moving seats.
This would be a good movie for that.
And so that's why. So the second time I saw this movie in theaters is when I did that. And it actually went really well. The opening scene was a lot of fun because you were moving around with it.
My instinct was that it would be good, but I hesitated for a second. I was like, well, I've only seen them in like Star Wars movies when you're the vehicle. So then I was like, well, what would it be like in a comic book movie? Yeah. Okay, that makes sense though. Like you're describing in the scene and stuff. You're fine with him. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, for me it was.
He fights a dragon in that scene. Like it's just so cool. It's such a cool movie. I'm not. If we had to swap for some reason, if neither of us thought to do this, just because it does fit our personal rankings a little bit more this way, everything else works. But doing that one where it would have been tied no matter, well, not tied, but that makes sense to me. But it's a really strong movie, and like I said, it's been my number one before. But that comedy stuff is what, and the way they just plow through everything. Yeah. Oh, so they're talking about how Christian Bale is going to be in the Thor: Love and Thunder movie. I mean, I asked if he's going to be Beta Red Bill. I hope so. And it's not who I thought. I figured it would just be like Baldur or something like that because he hasn't shown up. And he's a pretty big Norse mythology character, but also in the comics too. And it's been suspiciously absent. But I think it's because he has his whole story arc. Yeah. Bat Silly Stuff says, have y'all seen the new live-action Mystery Incorporated 2020 series trailer? Do you know what that is?
No, but it seems like it's a new Scooby-Doo series.
That's what I thought, or something like that too. But that's like Mystery Machine.
Yeah. Well, no, they are the Mystery Incorporated.
Oh, it is. Okay, see, I didn't even know that.
Yeah, no, that is what they're called. So, no, but
live action Scooby Doo would be interesting, just because like they've done it before, but they could do better.
It's really dark, apparently. Okay.
Maybe we'll check that out after. Yeah. I haven't seen Black Widow trailer either. That kind of gets into what we're saying about avoiding trailers. Yeah. Which I like, because I've adopted that practice now too. I've seen clips and little bits of Black Widow, and what I was talking about earlier about the like I am interested more so than when I was going off of Black Widow prequel and no other information. It's like I don't love prequels. Yeah, I talked about that earlier. It could be interesting with her because like the Red Moon stuff is interesting, and this will flash back a lot. But I'm all for it, like being a little more balanced and having some stuff that we don't know about. Okay. One more.
And so for the number one on our list.
Yeah, my number one and your number two. So we were both neck and neck with this. This was another one that I wasn't really sure where I was going to end up. But this is also where like I thought it was interesting. Like my number one's Black Panther. Number 23 is Captain Marvel. But I also, like, it's going to protect me a little bit. like we haven't gotten a lot of it because it does happen sometimes. I've criticized Captain Marvel before, and in spite of like the words and say and my past actions, we get thrown around a lot of like, oh, sexism and stuff. And it's like, well, no, women have featured in all of these top 10. Yeah, sorry, I was trying to do two things at once there. Like this movie, they're a huge part of this movie. But even like if we look at our top 10, okay, like. The romantic lead in this is a big part of the movie. Team up, Gamora is like a huge part of both the Guardians of the Galaxies. Same thing with these two Captain America movies. Same thing with these Avengers movies. Homecoming, possibly the weakest, but we talked about how important the romantic lead was to that. Yeah. Main villain's female, and the like
Valkyrie.
I would say the secondary and protagonist is also like a huge part of it, and like she stands alone.
Oh,
like we're talking about with romance and stuff. It's like not important to the movie, not what she's there for. And then so like my point just being like, it's not a complete. You're giving Captain Marvel too much credit when you do that.
Yeah.
Okay, we don't have to read like Captain Marvel because we're talking about Black Panther, which ended up being my number one, and it didn't start out that way, and only really came in to my number one at the latest iteration of this list.
Going into this list, did you think that you were going to have Black Panther at 1?
No, and what it came down to is that thing we used to help us pick it.
Yeah.
Because it would be like, well, would you rather watch Black Panther right now or Infinity War right now? Which isn't the only thing I was considering. But when I was given these choices, I was looking at the two, I was like, I have issues with Black Panther.
Yes.
Those freaking rhinos, and there's little scenes and shots throughout the movie that are weak CGI. Like we were talking about how great Iron Man 2 looks.
Yeah.
We can also talk about how bad Black Panther looks sometimes.
Yeah.
And how good Black Panther looks at other times.
Oh,
It gets into how these movies are animated with CG more and more lately, but as time went on, it's more outsourced because it has to be. You look at those credits, they're not going to be able to do all that in-house.
No.
But it means that it's not consistent across the entire movie. That's Black Panther's biggest problem. On the other hand, we got like the coolest setting yet.
Yeah.
We got an amazing cast and crew. The start of a good trilogy is someone else's. Oh, they're talking about something else in there, but it's going to be the start of a great trilogy. Best villains, I think, is what you just said.
One of the strongest, if not, in my opinion, the strongest.
Yeah, I mean, we might revisit villains at some point. I will also say he's my favorite villain. More so than Thanos even, which is saying a lot. But Killmonger has like a really good point.
Yeah.
And if you look at the politics of it all, it's well done. It's interesting. They the first time I watched this movie, I didn't like it that much. I would say it would, even at first, it would start in my top 10. Probably lower, closer to here around Ant-Man. Guardians level, or at least where they are now.
Yeah.
I don't think they were before, but like around there. This is one of those movies, like, we talked about another one like this on here, too, that I came to like more over time. I think Winter Soldier.
Yes.
Yeah, Winter Soldier, Black Panther, and we haven't talked about this movie, but it's my quintessential example of this, Dark Knight Rises. All three of these movies, the first time I saw them, I didn't hate them. Rises is actually the weakest of those three, that I actually didn't like it very much in theaters. It's a very long movie that doesn't work well in theaters, if you ask me. It's better for home viewing because it works better like that. But these three movies, over time, I kind of came to appreciate them. In the case of Black Panther, like everything's a little different. Why that is, like in terms of Rises or Winter Soldier. Black Panther, everything that I don't like about the movie, I've come to like understand better over time and be like, well, that's not really either what they're going for or like that's what the movie's about. So for example, it really bothered me that we have this advanced society and they determine who rules the country by a fight to the death.
Honestly, that didn't bother me too much.
It bothered me at first, but now I've kind of been like, well, that's kind of the whole point of the movie, right?
Yeah.
Like them stuck in the past, and that's like because that ties directly into Killmonger's whole thing about like, well, why the heck have we been sitting by while Africa's been butchered and you have this advanced society like hiding away? Well, because they're this society that's rooted in tradition and they keep trying to push past it, but like they have elders and like T'Challa. Sorry, I blanked on his actual name. I kept saying I wanted to say Black Panther, but it's like no, he's got a human name too. He's not the be all and end all. He's got tribes to deal with and stuff. They didn't fully get into that, but a little enough that it was there, and it's like, okay, it does make sense in the context of the movie. And that gets into like, well, why did they burn down all the flowers, which bugged me in the movie the first time I saw it. It's like, well, because he's a crazy person, and he like it fits into Killmonger's character and what he's all about. Killmonger had the right ideas about some things, like just in terms of that injustice, as talking about with Africa and stuff, but he's not a good person. He wasn't going to be a good leader of Wakanda. Yeah. He was right, but wrong. He was still a villain.
Like, the first time I watched the movie, you were talking about the flower scene there when he burns them all down. For me, the first time I watched it, that kind of sold me on it. Where I was like, you know what? Because he does care about everyone else, but he also understands his power, and he wants to be the strongest
there's
one.
There's that. I also that's 100% why he did it.
Yeah.
It also to me explains, like, you know, for all his talk about his politics when we lead Wakanda, he doesn't give a crap about their future.
No.
Like he just doesn't.
He cares about him.
Yeah.
And him and his people.
But this is why he's such a great villain. Like, 'cause it's not like, oh no, he's just right, and all the heroes have to stop the politically like correct villain.
Yeah.
And not politically correct in the traditional term, but like from a political angle and from a moral angle, Killmonger very much has a legitimate point to make.
Yeah.
But he's all wrong. Like, everything about him's like wrong about how he goes about it, and like he's still a bad dude, and that's why he's such a great villain. And I think he elevates this movie a little bit, at least so enough that it gets into the top 5, and then we start to get into, it's all a black cast and crew. And they did a great job at like blending all of Africa into like this one cool culture with different costumes, and it looks different than a lot of those kind of movies that have been done before, because they exist, but they don't exist to this scale and like to this commercial success. Marvel dragging their feet. Kevin Feige had to fight to make this movie. It just becomes like, this movie is what Captain Marvel pretends to be, but isn't.
Yes.
Captain Marvel has none of these excuses, or like, it's not even an excuse for Black Panther. These are triumphs. Like, Captain Marvel is riding in the wake of Wonder Woman. And anything that you can say about like Captain Marvel being a story, Wonder Woman did all that already.
Yeah.
And you have to like be telling a good movie at this point, because even Wonder Woman is like, well, it's not the first superhero female movie.
Yeah.
Even under like the most traditional aspect of that, but then people point out, it's like, well, like Aliens from 1979, and like you can't really do that. But I can't think of a equivalent for Black Panther like in the same vein. Night of the Living Dead's from that time period, and it's the black protagonist, and it's incidental and stuff, but that's like the only black character in that movie.
Yeah.
Of a full black cast to this size and this scale, no.
With this amount of success.
No.
Yeah, no.
Amistad was a box office failure. Roots is like a TV miniseries. Spike Lee did a lot of movies like that, but none of those are blockbusters.
No.
Commercially successful, definitely critically successful, sure. Plenty of examples, and plenty of examples of like Independence Day or anything with Will Smith, really, I think from that time period, but above and beyond that, Denzel Washington, all these characters, but something so thoroughly ingrained for like this to be an international box office hit is a big deal.
Yeah.
You can SJW, whatever, but again, like it works both ways, right? We can't bash Captain Marvel and have this at the top and be sexist, racist, but we can't like have Captain Marvel at the bottom and this be at the top and be SJW. I didn't do that on purpose. Like, why would I?
It just happened to have come out that way.
I just thought it was super interesting, especially, I thought, like, it was so interesting. My number one was that, and my bottom one was that, and these two relatively new MCU movies that got these extreme directions, but I think it gets into what's more creatively honest. This one, like, they kind of threw all that control and power over to the director. I think it's Ryan Coogler is his name for Black Panther. It's somewhere in that little text down there, but neither of us will be able to read that.
No.
It's like Angela. I can't really. I don't see the director's name. I'd recognize it if I saw it. Maybe it isn't Ryan Coogler. Maybe I think Ryan Coogler did Logan. Very different movie.
We'll find this out in just a second.
Yeah, I'm gonna check because it does feel relevant. It might be good to have all this info up because it is.
You were right.
Oh, okay. So
yep.
It was, yeah, all right. And he co-wrote it with and clearly had, but the top down, they had all these people involved.
Just unzoomed that photo.
Yeah. I don't know if it matters that much. Either way, see the cast a little bit, but it's a nice, authentic movie, and I just think it's interesting that it held up for me so well. It wasn't my favorite right out of the gate. It's not the one that I connect with emotionally the most.
Yeah.
Not really at all. But just on a intellectual level, I enjoy it the most, I guess. But it's also the one I can come back to the most. There's so much to it. The city looks cool, and then I was thinking, I was talking about how some CGI looks terrible, but I also kind of hinted some of it looks great. Not all of it's even CG, but some of the cinematography is so cool. That casino fight where they do that one long take and they go upstairs with the camera on a crane, fight a little bit, and then they go back down and go back. It's so well done. Really cool looking, and all the characters are fun. Beyond T'Challa, his little sister's great. Shira or something. Shuri.
Oh, okay, there we go.
And his ex, the Royal Guard, that guy who kind of betrays them to Killmonger, and is the Royal Guard's husband, but then he's okay, no, I'll calm down, I'll be cool, and then he's just an ally in the next movie again, because they're all part of they're on the same team, they just have some disagreements and stuff.
Yeah, where I find, as you said, I may not have emotionally connected with this movie as much as other movies that I may have mentioned already. I don't think that's there.
I don't think it's just we're white or something, we're not, I don't think it's that kind of movie anyways.
Yeah.
There is a family drama going on, but I think it's more action adventure-y.
Yeah. I just find that I genuinely enjoyed watching this movie.
Yeah.
It was a good movie.
Well, when I say don't connect with it that emotionally, it's not a criticism. This movie wasn't trying to be The Lion King or even Infinity War or something. Well, Infinity War didn't make me cry, but Endgame did. Something else on here did. Some of them can reach me in that emotional place. But that's not they have to want to do that, right?
Yeah.
Thor Ragnarok didn't want to do that, but it's excellent. And it made me laugh a million times, which is what it wanted to do. Winter Soldier didn't make me feel that way, but Guardians too. That's, the one that hit me emotionally. Winter Soldier wanted me to feel excited and interested, and I would argue it did that, and that's kind of how Black Panther succeeded.
Black Panther knew what it wanted to be, and was nothing more than that.
It also felt crazy fresh. It wasn't an origin story movie, really, because we kind of already got a lot of that out of the way with Civil War. I wish they did something like that with Captain Marvel. And then, that would have been kind of cool if she just showed up in Infinity War. Just who's that? And Nick Fury could have been I know her. Don't worry, she's here to help. And that could have been something. But then instead, that's we've got this new world. And we've always seen Wakanda in the comics and stuff, but I feel I don't know, it was something we really hadn't seen before.
Well, the shot of flying through the jungle and then all of a sudden you break through the field and you see everything.
That's the kind of thing you can't do in a comic. That's where we get into it's well adapted too. It kind of brings out the stuff that we never really had in the comics.
Yeah.
I don't know, Wakanda in the comics just didn't look like that from before. Until we got into Ta-Nehisi Coates doing the intergalactic empire of Wakanda, which is cool, but that's different. We can't start there. We gotta work our way up to that. But I think that's actually probably where we're going.
Yeah.
Based on the design of the city and stuff and all that, I was let's do that. Let's just long term, because I can't wait for this movie sequel. That's the other thing too. Yeah. It's in spite of everything, it still is starting out. And I was thinking a lot about that as I'm excited for Captain Marvel too, because I think that'll be a big improvement. What is this movie gonna do next? I'm excited, and I kind of like how they sort of put his character on pause for Infinity War a bit. He had a cool moment in both the movies, but he got blipped out, and they just sort of stepped away from that because, like Captain Marvel, he's the future of this stuff, and he's gonna be leading a lot of this, and it's just so good. I really liked it, and it's weird. It ended up being our number one because it's one that I don't have a ton of personal attachment to like that, but
I'm more than happy with it.
I don't object to it at all, and because the other ones, I feel like they're held back more by their faults.
Yeah.
But the faults I can mention, and that's part of why I kept bringing them up for all these movies. It's like, well, we're not here to uncritically bring them up. None of these movies are perfect, as it turns out. But like Black Panther is like, some crummy CGI effects, by far the most minor thing. Because we talked about how Iron Man 2 looks relatively good with CG, and it's at the bottom. Because that doesn't matter. Like, it needs to carry itself more than that. It needs to offer more. Yeah. And I think Black Panther offers way more. Some of the stuff they do is so good. Like, we didn't even talk about like how like they explain Killmonger's position in that animated sequence and stuff. I thought like they do the politics of it all really well without really hammering it over the head. Like, if you know about colonialism, this is an excellent story that really kind of gets into stuff without it being like British people came and ruined everything. Like, no, that's implied. We know that. And
we don't have to explicitly say it.
I thought it was interestingly, like, it was implied in seeing, like, in the opening shots in the movie where we go to, like where was it? It was, like, a crummy community in LA or something like that. It has a name.
I'm not going to say anything just to save myself here.
It'll be in Oakland, that's it.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Oakland, like a famous lower income community. Then he ends up opening up like an embassy there, basically.
Yeah.
Directly tying into what this movie's all about and stuff. It was really well done with all that stuff. And I really surprised myself with this. Because I think if I hadn't ranked it number one, Thor would probably be there. But like, I got these results and I looked at everything and thought about like if I wanted to change anything. Black Panther was definitely something I considered early on. It's just like it's never come up at number one for me before.
Yeah.
But I think I've just sort of, like I said, like the more I revisit it, the more I like it. So it's built its way up. That's how it worked with Dark Knight Rises. I did not like that movie that much, and I certainly didn't like it more than The Dark Knight.
Yeah.
But that's kind of how I feel about it now, kind of. That's, at least, to the extent that it's a debate. It wouldn't have been before, but like, the Joker was like, you know, and all his stuff with Heath Ledger, that used to just be this untouchable gold, and now I'm like, I don't know if I think I might like, what's his face's Joker a little more. The newer one. Joaquin Phoenix's.
Yeah. Well, we could have an entire discussion on Joaquin Phoenix and the Joker.
And I was talking about how there's too many DC movies to do it like this, but we could do like Batman, for example.
Yeah.
That is more manageable and stuff than other things. But wow. 252. But I'm feeling pretty good about this.
Yeah.
Here's the cool side of this is like we didn't know. It's interesting. This must lag behind a lot.
No, you have it paused when you check audio.
Okay, that's fine. It's not paused for them.
Yeah, no, that was just the last time we checked audio.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure. Yeah. Oh, yeah, see, it's not live anymore. Yeah, no one's brought it up since then, so I assume it's fine. I just wanted to make sure we had our actual proper list here so people can look at it while we're kind of outroing ourselves. I'm pretty happy with this list. So what I was going to say is we didn't know. I had no idea what this was here. I'll take this for you.
Thank you.
Carrying it anymore. I had no idea how this was going to turn out going in. Like, neither of us did. I had a rough idea, but I was like, we could change things heavily. As we kind of started it, I was like, okay, it is going in the direction I figured it would, with like Phase 1 movies kind of coming up. That's a common reflection, but like we'll just review it briefly. Like we did a halfway point, but yeah, so we got like Thor: The Dark World and Iron Man 2. So those I think were rushed sequels, pre-Disney, so they don't have a lot of budget to them. Yeah, can't rely on just introducing things. Can't rely on like being there right at the gate. They don't have something special like that first Iron Man movie.
Yeah.
Then we get into Thor, Incredible Hulk, and Age of Ultron. Well, Thor and Incredible Hulk. So it's like that's the next batch really. Do intro movies, not quite there, but not terrible.
Yeah, not terrible, but we were able to. It's just not. It doesn't hold up compared to the newer movies.
To me, we're already getting into movies I like. I mean, Age of Ultron. That one felt a little low looking at all this now, but I get why, because there's so many problems. So we both sort of identified it early on as an issue.
I think if we were to go around and look at our list here, we'd probably want to make a couple adjustments.
I guess. But I would also be like, well, no, that's my adjustments I want to make and stuff. Like, I wouldn't be super willing to change it. Because then as we go along, it's like, well, I kind of see the argument.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't like Captain Marvel much, but it's like, it's not a disaster movie.
And actually, Captain Marvel's a great example for this, to where I'd probably even move it down One more. I'd probably put Age of Ultron above it if I were to just look at this list and make personal changes.
Yeah.
That's probably the one that's staring at me.
We both feel that way, but like it ended up working out differently because it's how it scored. Iron Man 3, I thought was the opposite though. It's like, well, I like that more than you did. Like, and it just like all balanced out. And then we kind of get into like it's just interesting. Like Ant-Man and the Wasp and Captain Marvel really stand out in this lower half. I will say that.
Yeah.
Everything else is Phase 1 or like early Phase 2 in the case of Age of Ultron. Ant-Man and the Wasp and Captain Marvel, I think if we were to truly compare them to Phase 1 movies, they're actually pretty good.
Yeah.
But they don't hold up to their peers at the time, and you do have to keep bringing it over a while. Doctor Strange, I think, is perfect right in the middle. Same thing with Ant-Man. Like, those are really, like, right mid-range. Doctor Strange, I think, is the most mid-range MCU movie. That's why I was kind of happy where it ended up where it was.
Yeah.
And Ant-Man, I think, is right with it.
Nothing that I'm going to go and yell about on the street.
Yeah, we wouldn't start people with pretty much any of these movies, except for maybe Iron Man.
Yeah.
Or Avengers. I don't even know how I would introduce someone to the MCU other than just telling them to go in order anyways. But, and then we get into our top 10. Spider-Man Far From Home, Guardians of the Galaxy, Captain America Civil War, Avengers Endgame, I'm just going to read it. Captain America The Winter Soldier, Guardians Volume 2, Spider-Man Homecoming, Avengers Infinity War, Thor Ragnarok, Black Panther. I'll tell you guys, this is about as close to a like top 10 MCU movies you're going to get. Like, it's why I bother at this point. And it was never really going to be the kind of top 10 video I was going to make.
No.
If we did, maybe it'd be for public voting, and we could do that.
Yeah.
Because it would be different than this, and that would be interesting. And to be honest, like, once Black Widow comes out, we can get another person in here and do it all over again, and it'll be a different thing.
See, I'd definitely be interested in creating something to where the fans are able to put their numbers in.
Yeah.
That could be something that I might have to look into for you.
Yeah, I don't know if we could do it with this system where we talk about it like in that order. We'd have to prearrange it, but then it's doable. I thought about that too. It'd be interesting to like contribute in there, but like I didn't. You never know what we're gonna get out of that, and I was a little unsure about how that would work. But I'm pretty happy with that top 10. I think the ordering is there. It could be debated heavily, like by anyone really. And that gets into what you were saying. Like, but it gets into the point where it's like, well, those 10 movies with, okay, I'm willing to accept that even with Far From Home, which is like the one that I really sticks out for me, and it's number 10.
Yeah.
And even then, I was like, well, like, I would just swap it with Ant-Man. Really, like if this were like if I were to have control over this, and you don't like that, right? So,
and that's the thing. For me, Ant-Man, I didn't feel nearly as much with.
Right.
So, but it is coming from two different perspectives, two different people watching.
Realistically, we would just go down the list a little bit to Avengers, and probably would agree to just swap it there, right?
Yeah.
Like we're not going to do that because we're going to go by the rules that we agreed to, and I'm reasonably happy with all that.
Yeah.
I do also want to say Phantasm. His most recent thing. I left so many comments. Sorry, we didn't respond to a lot of comments today because we were mostly talking to each other and got into it, which I'm not gonna apologize for. But because if ever or someone really wants to talk, there's like super chats and stuff they can do, and we did little breaks to get into things. But thanks for participating in chat, and don't apologize for leaving too many comments. I would say your comments were by far the most we were responding to because they were very relevant to what we were saying, and you prompted us to remember certain things for some movies that we would have just skipped over. It happened here and there where I thought of something. I brought it up occasionally, and then I just gave up. I was like, whatever. I literally just short of 3 hours. Yeah. Which also means this is now the longest ever Comic Island video. Which is fine. This is more... I got this idea from a podcast, so I had a feeling it was going to be set up like that. And these are movies that we could talk about very easily, so I just figured it was going to... I hoped we would go for a while. But I think that's about... I feel I've said my piece.
Yeah, I'm very happy with how the list turned out, all things considered.
Yeah.
I'm very happy with how this turned out.
I enjoyed it. It was a good discussion. There was a lot to talk about. Like, really, we could have kept going, I'm sure, but... well, kind of. Like, I felt like we got our piece in for each of the movies, though. Like, it'll be fun. So given all that, I don't know when we'll do this, but I enjoyed this. And okay, I was going to say, I enjoyed this enough, we'll do this again. I was going to tell you guys what we were going to do next, and then I was like, oh, we might change that. We've talked about a few ideas throughout the stream. Right now, I'll say the plan is we didn't really want to leave the MCU because it's just the perfect amount of movies.
Yeah.
Or at least I didn't.
I think 23 movies, it's cool. It's a lot. However, it's good for this format.
Yeah, for what we're doing here, it's great.
Yes.
More is where I'm like, oh god.
Yes.
That's where like if we did DC movies, it'd be like that. Batman, I think it'd be closer to like 13 or something, but that feels a little shorter. That'd be half of this, or a little more. But like I don't know if I can like stretch it. Although if we did like all Batman movies, that would work.
Yeah.
The animated ones. The only thing about that is there's homework. And then top comic book characters. Wished we get more exposure. Think about that. Like, it's cool. Here's a set pool, right?
Yeah.
So we have to pick the same choices. I was thinking Batman villains. Or not Batman villains. MCU villains.
Yeah.
Because, again, same thing, set list. 21 instead of 23. So about the same. We can talk a little bit about like, not nickel and diming minutes here. And I think there's something to talk about there distinct from this. So we'll say tentatively maybe do that again one day, and I don't know when we're going to do this because there's other streams and stuff eventually. Who knows? But at some point, I definitely want to do this again.
If you're still with us at this part of the stream, thank you.
Yeah.
For those who are watching after this is no longer live, thank you as well. If you have ideas for ones, throw them in the comments. It's always something we can look at.
What is Robertson Batman? What is Robertson Pattinson Batman part of the DC continuity? Because I keep hearing he isn't. I keep hearing he is. This is an unrelated conversation. Someone's starting to chat. Yeah, we don't have enough time for that. Well, we could talk about Batman, but yeah, I'm good. All right, well, yeah, so what he said, thank you all for joining us. A special shout out to Phantasm, who's been with us, I think, since the start. Jason Tupac, I've kind of seen you talking throughout. Other people have been chiming in here and there. I don't want to discount your participation, but you guys stand out in particular, who lasted for like 3 hours. I don't even fault someone who watched for like an hour and is going to come back for the rest later, by all means. I'm just always impressed when it does happen. Guilty pleasure comic book movies. See, that's an interesting one from the only problem is, again... but
that's it's not kind of a short pool.
I can make it into one, though.
Yeah.
Like, we could even cap it at 23 and be like, out of these, rank them. And they're all going to be, like, terrible. But then you have to hunt them down and watch them. So, we'll see. That's what I liked about this. And I had to even pick about you because most, like, our mutual friends who are involved in this, like, Jared hasn't watched the movie since Avengers for, like, out of these. I don't think, like, Dylan's caught up. And I don't know about a lot of the ladies. I know, like, Allison.
I know Allison's only seen, like, 2 total.
I was going to say, she's a disaster for anything like that. And Mel... probably is closer to like missing 4 or 5.
Yeah,
I don't know. I didn't ask her.
For me, it was easy enough. I only had to watch 2 movies last night.
That's why I couched it as like how many you had, and then that would have also affected how much notice we would need too, right? Because if it was 10, I was like, okay, take your time, but watch them. Then that way, like it's easier to maintain now, anyways, right?
Yeah.
So we'll go from there. That's why I like these ones, but yeah, like Ben said, if you guys have ideas for that, it's a new format, but I want to do more of this. Try and keep that in mind, what we're saying, though, about, like, it's like 23 to 25. Well, let's say 20 to 25 is, like, an ideal number, or really, like, 10 to 25. Beyond 30, it's too many choices, and we're going to be talking, unless it's something really simple.
Yes.
Like a character or a costume. Costumes go by quick, because we're just talking about imagery and like, nothing else to say. And that would be pretty cool too, because I could just send you a gallery, like every Batman costume, and you rank them, and I rank them, and we do the same thing. And then this system also works with 3 people. It works very well, because then it's less affected by one, but one person can still have the same pull-up effect.
Yeah.
But I argue, like, we're talking about personal, subjective things. And because of that, I think having an effect on the list and having some degree of control, even if it's not all the control, is interesting.
Yeah.
And it only works in one direction, which I kind of find interesting. Like, you can only pull things up.
Yeah. Can't push anything down, which is...
Not really. You can you can make it as low as it can possibly be, but the other person's going to decide when it goes in, but they don't have final say on their placement either.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it's kind of neat. If I wanted something to be at number 1, guess I could put it at number one, but I don't really have a guarantee. I guess like you can really game the system if you're being dishonest. But then this is why that's where we have to watch out for fans a little bit. Is like this system wouldn't work for that, but we do public ones and other stuff like that for sure. And maybe there's a way we can incorporate that in. If I build a list out of their results, that might be easier. Then I have one, me, mine, you, even a third person, and then we just go through it like this. We have to keep more. That's where the check marks are so much more important. DC animated films. That's where I was getting at. Like all Batman films, we include Lego Batman.
I'd have so much to say.
That's the only.
I'd have so much to say.
It's a lot to watch too. Is the only downside.
Yeah.
There's a lot of those movies. I haven't seen them all either. Okay, so I'm gonna call it there. Thanks again for joining us. Though I hate most of the new ones. Yeah, and he's not wrong about that. Like they become a chore after a while.
Yeah.
Especially the animated ones. And we'll go from there. Thanks again, everybody, for joining us. And you all have a great day. Evening. Whatever.